Audible, everyone? Okay, done. So yesterday, what we have done? Yesterday we covered the remaining part of infrastructure. For example, we have discussed road sector. Correct? Yesterday we have discussed a road. How many roads are there? Right? What kind of roads do we have in India? What is the length of the road? Out of this, how much is national highway? How much is the the state highways, etc., etc. So apart from that, we also discussed what are the issues in case of road sector. Then what are the reforms that have been implemented by the government. In fact, if you have read yesterday's Hindu as well as today's Hindu newspaper, today's Hindu newspaper, there is one important article. Please read that. Bharat NCAP. Right. Yesterday also it was there. Today also it is there. But in fact, today there is a very bigger article. Right. Today there is a very big article on Bharat NCAP. Please read that article again. Sir, is it from economics? Not strictly from economics, but there are so many areas that let's say the question can be asked on the concept of Bharat NCAP. It is purely current affairs. Please read that article. Okay, so yesterday we discussed road sector. After road sector, we have discussed civil aviation market, right? The problems in civil aviation, what reforms, what is Udan scheme, etc., etc. And in addition to that, we have discussed a port sector in India, how the ports are divided into major ports, non-major ports, who will take care of the major ports, who takes care of the non-major ports, how much is the cargo handled in the major, non-major, what are the issues in the port sector, what reforms can be implemented, what reforms are being implemented. For example, Sagarmala initiative, waterways, right, etc., etc. So that is what you have discussed yesterday, and after that we started with the discussion on the concept of planning, idea or the concept related to planning. And in planning, what we have discussed, right? Basically, what do you mean by economic plan? What was the need for economic planning in India? Right? Why did government of India adopt this model of economic planning, and how the evolution has happened? When was the first plan that was recommended for India? Right after that, different plans were recommended, etc. Then the planning commission, 1950 we set up planning commission, 1952 we set up National Development Council, and then there was basically the cabinet, and the plan was sent to the parliament, after which it was actually implemented. Then the composition of planning commission, NDC. What are the long term goals? I hope remember long term goals: growth, equity, modernization, self reliance, eradication of poverty, creation of employment, a reduction of regional disparities, etc. All of these were the long term goals of 5-year planning. Now, I've shown you how many 5-year plans are there. How do you remember? Right, I've given you a trick also. After third 5-year plan, there was annual plan, and 1979, 1980, there is one more gap. Then 1980 again, there was the annual plan, or the stop, or let's say the pause in the planning, 5-year planning after 1990 for 2 years. Apart from that, every other 5-year plan has been implemented in this particular fashion. Now, right, I told you to have a look at even this particular table. I told you do not by heart everything. Please remember important numbers. For example, first 5-year plan, what was the target? Were we able to achieve it? Second 5-year plan, very famous, today we'll start from there. Mahalanobis strategy, or heavy industrialization policy, that is also important. But if you look at second 5-year plan, the target was much higher, we were not able to meet the target. Then the important 5-year plan, as far as the UPC will be concerned, will be the seventh 5-year plan, right? For a very simple reason. In fact, if you have remembered it, I said the seventh 5-year plan was the first time when overall GDP growth rate actually hit 6% for Indian economy. For the first time, we were able to reach a 6% GDP growth rate, 6% GDP growth rate. And in fact, I said in the seventh 5-year plan, there is a 1 year, financial year 89, wherein India's agriculture sector actually registered a double-digit GDP growth rate, 10.4%. Agriculture sector was able to grow in the financial year 89. Apart from that, just have a glance through these right numbers. Do not by heart everything. You'll not be able to remember. You will get more confused rather than remembering. Then we have discussed the concept of first 5-year plan. Right? The logic is very simple. First 5-year plan, we were able to basically promote agriculture sector, irrigation, land reforms, right? Because we were dependent on the food imports, etc., etc. And in addition to that, we have discussed the model of Harrod-Domer, right? What does the Harrod-Domer model say? It simply states that if you want to achieve higher growth, if you want to achieve higher GDP, then you will have to reduce the capital output ratio, and you will have to increase the savings rate in the economy. That is basically the concept of Harrod-Domer model. Done? Now let me start with the second 5-year plan. For the next 40 to 45 minutes, you will have to have patience. I'll give you a lot of factual information. Please have patience. Right? Now, second 5-year plan, 1956 to 61. Now, what is this? The Mahalanobis strategy. What is this importance of second 5-year plan? Point number one, Mahalanobis is a very famous statistician in India. The name of the person is P.C. Mahalanobis. P.C. Mahalanobis. And what was this Mahalanobis strategy? Mahalanobis strategy is also referred to as heavy industrialization. Heavy industrialization policy. Now, point number one, what is this heavy industrialization policy? Listen to me very carefully. Please do let me know. Earlier, did I give you what is the meaning of heavy industries? Let me know. I'm pretty sure I've given you what is the meaning. What is the term mean, heavy industries? Apart from heavy industries, there is also a concept of consumer goods industry. Sir, what do you mean by heavy industry? Heavy industry simply means, I'll start with an example. Let's say shipbuilding, steel manufacturing, aluminum manufacturing, shipbuilding, etc. Heavy industries means the industries where investment will be very, very high. You'll have to spend a lot of money, right, to create this infrastructure. You will produce a lot of output using these industries. That is called as heavy industries. So, any example? Shipbuilding is a heavy industry. Or for example, manufacturing of steel, manufacturing of iron, manufacturing of aluminium. All these are called as heavy industries. So, the focus of second 5-year plan was simply to promote heavy industries as well as to promote goods industry, that is consumer goods industry. In fact, please understand, when I talk about heavy industries, can I also say the focus was on capital machinery? Think of it. The focus was on capital goods as well, because if you want to produce a steel, you'll have to produce machines using which you want to produce steel. So the argument was very simple. Rather than importing all of them, rather than importing capital machinery, rather than importing, right, these raw materials, rather than importing consumer goods, etc., etc., in the second 5-year plan, our focus was to basically go for import substitution. What kind of import substitution? We wanted to substitute imports of consumer goods. We wanted to import the products, that is a capital machinery, from, right, we wanted to substitute the import of capital machinery from being imported. That is the reason this is called as a Mahalanobis strategy. But please understand, as per government documents, the target that was set up under the Mahalanobis strategy was 4.5%. For the second 5-year plan, we set up a target of 4.5%. We were not able to achieve 4.5%. We ended up achieving less than 4.5, that is actually 4.3. If you ask me, sir, why? Why is that? Why is that we actually targeted 4.5, but we were not able to achieve? Was this strategy successful? Were we able to promote capital goods, consumer goods production in India? The argument of the experts is that not so much. The strategy was not very successful in case of India. We were not able to achieve what we were, right, what we were setting up as a target under the Mahalanobis strategy. The reasons are very simple. You want to produce capital machinery, you want to produce right, consumer goods, you want to go for import substitution. But for that, please do let me know, all of you okay when I say, for that to happen, savings rate for Indian economy should have been higher? Think of it. I'll repeat it again. For all of these things to happen, that is, let's say, for production of more and more capital machinery, for producing more and more consumer goods, if that has to happen, investment has to increase. If the investment has to increase, then the savings has to be higher. But at this point of time, large population was actually poor in India. Lot of contribution came from agriculture sector. Agriculture sector was under stress. We were not able to produce more and more output in the agriculture sector. Farmers were suffering because of it. So as a result of this, the strategy was not very successful in going for import substitution. In fact, there's a criticism for this strategy. What is the criticism? There are two economists, please remember, slightly entering into optional paper now. There are two economists. One is Mr. Brahmananda and the second one is Mr. Vakil. There are two economists at this particular point of time, Brahmananda and Vakil. And they basically criticized Mahalanobis strategy and said, our focus should not have been on heavy industrialization. Rather, our focus should have been on goods which are consumed by the common man. I'll repeat the statement. Right? Their argument was our focus should not be on heavy industrialization right now. Our focus should be on goods which will affect the consumption of a common man, which will promote productivity of a common man. For example, the workers, please tell me, can I say the productivity of the workers will be mainly affected by agriculture sector? All of you okay with this? Productivity of workers will be affected by agriculture sector. So how? Right? How agriculture sector will affect our productivity? Whether the food grains are available in sufficient quantity or not. Whether do we have sufficient nutrition or not. Don't you think that will affect our productivity? So their argument was very simple. Do not focus on heavy industrialization. We are not there yet. We can do it later. Right now, focus on goods which are associated with worker productivity, such as production of a textile, more and more textile in India, that is clothing in India, production of more and more agriculture output in India. The government strategy, government focus should be on these kind of goods, not on heavy industrialization. And they called these goods which would affect workers' productivity directly, they call these as wage goods. I'll repeat the concept here. Please understand this carefully. The idea of heavy industrialization was to go for import substitution. What kind of import substitution? Capital machinery, substitute it. Produce in India. Substitution means produce in India. Right? Consumer goods, substitute it. But argument, right? Argument was the government should not focus on heavy industrialization because we do not have sufficient investment, sufficient savings in India. Rather than that, produce more and more agriculture sector output. Promote more and more output in the agriculture sector. Promote more and more certain goods which are consumed by the common man and which will have a direct impact on their productivity. That is basically called as a wage good theory. This is called as a wage good theory. Now, there are two students who are asking, what is this Brahmananda strategy? It is so confusing. My dear, you tell me whether the amount of food that you consume, will it have an impact on your productivity or not? Simple argument. Will it have an impact on your productivity? Of course, yes. And at this point of time, answer to the second question now. Were we having sufficient amount of food grain production in India? Was there sufficient supply of food grain production? Of course, no. Right? Yesterday also we have discussed this. It was not there in the domestic market. So argument was very simple. There is a issue regarding wage goods product or wage goods supply in the market. That is the precise reason. Focus more on that. Later you can go for heavy industrialization. In fact, another criticism was that you want to produce capital machinery in India. You want to produce consumer goods in India. Do we have technology for that? We did not have technology. So what ended up happening? What ended up happening was we wanted to promote investment in the domestic market. We wanted to promote investment. Rather than borrowing, we wanted to invest. It ended up leading to more and more import of capital from the rest of the world. We ended up borrowing more from rest of the world. We ended up importing more from the rest of the world because this strategy was not suitable at that point of a time. So second 5-year plan focused on heavy industries and a consumer goods segment. Increase, right? Object was very simple. If I promote production rather than importing, I will create employment in the domestic market. Investment will increase, employment will increase. that automatically will increase overall production, GDP will increase, employment means national income will also increase. So have a look at this, increase national income as well as increase investment. And during the second 5-year plan, 3 steel plants were actually built, one at Rourkela, second one at Bhilai, third one at Durgapur. Okay, right? So these are certain important points regarding second 5-year plan. Was it successful? Not so much. Employment, for employment creation, no policy was there. Rather than reducing imports, we ended up importing more and more, right? We ended up borrowing more and more during this particular period of time from rest of the world, right? Agriculture sector was not a focus now, right? Agriculture sector suffered. All these are some of the criticisms for the second 5-year plan. Let me go to the third 5-year plan, 1961 to 1966, third 5-year plan. Now again, the government of India realized we need to promote agriculture sector. And that is the reason, third 5-year plan, the emphasis, right, the focus again was laid on agriculture sector. Right, argument was very simple under the third 5-year plan. We are import dependent on the food grains. Let's not be import dependent. Let's produce more and more. Let's produce more and more. Promote a self-sufficiency so that import dependence will come down. Production will be there in the domestic market itself. Apart from this, we also started promoting establishing basic industry. Now, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by basic industry? Basic industries are those where the output is actually consumed in other industries. I'll repeat the statement. What do you mean by basic industry? Basic industries are those where the output of this industry will be consumed by another industry. For example, have a look at this. Sugar, paper, cotton, etc. All these are called as basic industry. Whatever is the output of this industry will be used by other industries. These are called as basic industries. Now, apart from this, the third 5-year plan was not a very great success for India for a very simple reason. India fought 2 wars. One in 1962, India fought war with China, and another one in 1965 when we fought the war with Pakistan. Because of 2 wars, and along with that, because of a drought also, agriculture sector suffered. Focus of government of India now was basically to fight the wars. Resources were diverted rather than promoting growth. Resources were used for fighting the war. As a result of all of this, third 5-year plan was a big failure. We were not able to achieve whatever targeted growth we actually set out in the third 5-year plan. And that is the precise reason from 1966 to 69, we actually stopped 5-year plans. Rather than this, right, we actually went for annual plans. And during this time period also, there was a huge shortage of forex reserves. Even in this 5-year plan, there was a huge shortage of the forex reserves. Done? So these are certain very important points regarding the third 5-year plan. Now, there are 2 students who are asking, are these points sufficient? My dear, I know there are at least 20 points for each of the 5-year plan. If I give you 20 points for each of the 5-year plan, there are 12 5-year plans. Will you be able to remember 240 points in sequence? Please do let me know. That is the reason you do not worry. You do not have to go to optional level for planning. This is more than sufficient as far as I am concerned. For a very simple reason, we do not have 5-year plans now. Point number 1, there are no 5-year plans. And that is the precise reason. We have discontinued 5-year plans. So whatever is the historical context of this, that's more than sufficient. Do not worry about the details about every 5-year plan. Now let me go to fourth 5-year plan. Now before I start discussing, just make 2 observations. One, nationalization of the banking sector. Nationalization. Second one, right, we started implementing lot of welfare programs from the fourth 5-year plan. So why is this important? Why is this important to make observations? Please tell me, compared to first, second and third, don't you think in the fourth 5-year plan, if government of India will target nationalization plus implementation of lot of welfare programs, does it not mean the government is changing the strategy now? Please think of it. I'll repeat it again and we'll connect it to yesterday's point. Compared to first, second and third 5-year plan, now government has started promoting green revolution. Government has promoted nationalization of the banking sector. Government has started promoting lot of social welfare programs. What is the meaning of it? Can I say, compared to earlier 5-year plans, now government of India wants to address poverty much more at a targeted level? Does it make sense or not? Government is more concerned about eradication of poverty. Government is concerned about more about the welfare of poor people in the economy. That is the argument. Please remember this. This was in fact asked by UPSC. This was in fact asked by UPSC. And moreover, please look at it. Nationalization of the banking sector, does it not mean government is focused on the financial market? Nationalization of the banking sector means what? Government is covering banking sector. Is it not basically the argument of financial market? Is it not having a policy regarding financial market in the 5-year plan? So that is right, the observations here. Please keep on making observations like this. UPSC may not ask you directly nationalization, but can they ask you financial market was covered under which of the following 5-year plans? Those kind of questions have been asked. Please be very careful. Now, fourth 5-year plan. Why is it important? Point number one. Government of India has changed the strategy now. Rather than following a trickle down, I repeat, rather than following trickle down, now government says, I will directly start attacking poverty. Attacking poverty means I will implement policies which will help me in eradicating poverty. I will implement policies which will help me in creation of welfare for the people, etc., etc. So two objectives were created under this fourth 5-year plan. One, we should have a stable growth, and we should also move towards a concept of Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. Apart from this, in case of fourth 5-year plan, government introduced the concept of nationalization of banking sector. 14 banks were actually nationalized in the fourth 5-year plan. Government started promoting green revolution, right? We started implementing a lot of social welfare programs. And please remember this, right? Please remember this. Fourth 5-year plan is also known for implementation of family planning programs in India. Very important. Please remember this. Sir, why are you talking about family planning in a fourth 5-year plan? In the last couple of months, have you come across newspaper articles which says India is the most populous country in the world? Yes or no? Let me know, right? Those who are reading current affairs, they will know this. India has become the most populous country in the world. Now, in the context of that, can UPSC suddenly ask you, in which of the following 5-year plans family planning was introduced by the government? Concept of family planning was introduced by the government. Suddenly they will ask you. And most of you will keep on thinking, what is the connection? What is a connection? Why has UPSC asked this kind of a question? There is a connection, right? There's a connection because we have become the most populous country in the world now, right? So two objectives, stable growth, self-reliance. Apart from that, green revolution, nationalization of banking sector, social welfare programs, right? Family planning was introduced, and in fact, regional level planning was also discussed. Regional level planning, right? The plans at the regional level, plans at the local level were also discussed in the fourth 5-year plan. Done. So please be very, very careful. Fourth 5-year plan, these are the important points. Now, let me go to the fifth 5-year plan. Fifth FYP, important. Fifth FYP, important. Why? This was the 5-year plan during the tenure of which, that is during the implementation of which, government imposed emergency. Emergency was not discussed in the 5-year plan. I hope you understand that. Emergency was not discussed. Emergency was imposed during the tenure of fifth 5-year plan. Now, what are the important points regarding the fifth 5-year plan? First one, government introduced a concept called as a 20-point program. Very, very famous, by the way. Government introduced the concept called as a 20-point program. You do not have to remember 20 points. Don't remember 20 points. It's of no use for you. Why? It was implemented from 1970s, and during 1970s, mid 1970s, 20-point program was introduced. And when Mr. Manmohan Singh was the prime minister, again the 20-point program was revised. So you don't remember the 20 points, but let me know. 20 points generally will focus on social welfare programs such as eradication of poverty, women empowerment, right? Providing housing for the poor people, addressing the issue of slums, providing drinking water facility. These are the 20 points. Right? These are generally the 20 points, right? So you do not have to remember all the 20 points, but remember the basic idea, right? Poverty, addressing poverty issues, providing drinking water, right? Providing the housing for poor people, slums would be addressed, etc., etc. Right? So that is basically the idea of a 20-point program. So fifth 5-year plan, first one, we wanted to address, right? We wanted to address the issue of poverty, alleviation of poverty, eradication of poverty. And this was the time period when government introduced a punchline called as Garibi Hatao. Right? Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the prime minister. Under the chairmanship of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, we introduced the concept or a punchline called as a Garibi Hatao. Now, how can we eradicate poverty? For that reason, we introduced the concept of 20-point program. 20-point program. Apart from poverty alleviation, self-reliance. As usual, self-reliance. Self-reliance was also the target here. In fact, please understand this. Many of you later will keep on asking me, sir, self-reliance appears in multiple plans. Is it correct? Yes. Right? Generally, it is argued that in the first 6 to 7 5-year plans, the target was self-reliance, target was growth. In every 5-year plan, generally you will see growth. Right? In first 6 to 7 5-year plans, you will keep on observing the term self-reliance. Right? So that is one more point. Second, we wanted to promote employment opportunities. We wanted to promote a creation of employment opportunities. And that is a precise reason lot of welfare programs were introduced at this particular point of time. For example, there is a scheme that I've written here. Please remember the name of the scheme. Don't do a detailed study about this. Hundreds of schemes have been introduced during planning, not relevant. Remember the name. What is the name? Integrated Rural Development Program. Integrated Rural Development Program. IRDP, Integrated Rural Development Program. So to promote employment generation as well as self-employment in the rural part of India, Government of India introduced the concept of IRDP. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, I came across IRDP in the fifth 5-year plan. I also came across IRDP in the sixth 5-year plan, which is correct. Please understand this. IRDP was introduced in the fifth 5-year plan, later expanded to cover all the districts in the sixth 5-year plan. When was it actually introduced? It was actually introduced in the fifth 5-year plan. Right? So IRDP was actually introduced in the fifth 5-year plan. Right? We wanted to control inflation as well as stabilize the growth of Indian economy in the fifth 5-year plan. And have a look at this. During the fifth 5-year plan, that is the tenure of 74 to 79, there was a change in the government. Elections were conducted, emergency was lifted, elections were conducted, and there was a change in the government. Then Janata Party formed the government. They were not liking this policy of 5-year plans. They discontinued the fifth 5-year plan. They introduced a sixth 5-year plan, which was called as rolling plan. Remember this, which was referred to as a rolling plan. Now, what is rolling plan? Rolling plan is nothing but concept of continuous planning, where right every year the plan will keep on changing based on our evaluation of the previous year. That is the reason this is called as a continuous planning. But later what happened? Even the Janata Party lost the majority, and Mrs. Indira Gandhi again formed the government. Congress again formed the government. That is the precise reason. Even this rolling plan was not implemented continuously. It was cut short. 1980, again the sixth 5-year plan, new sixth 5-year plan was implemented by the new government. So that is the sixth 5-year plan, which was implemented from 1980 to 1985. Now, anybody has got any kind of a doubt so far? I know a lot of factual information. I know for a fact, I know. But anybody has got any kind of a doubt so far? We have covered five 5-year plans. We have covered five 5-year plans. And when I say, is there any doubt? Tell me what is the doubt rather than saying, yes, there is a doubt. My dear, if you simply say, yes, there is a doubt, I don't understand what is the doubt. What is a rolling plan, my dear? Yesterday also we have discussed this. A rolling plan means we have, let's say, 5-year plan. The 5-year plan is broken down into annual plan. 1-year plans are made. Now you will implement a 1-year plan, and after that is over, you will evaluate and you will make changes to the second plan. After that, you will make the changes to the third plan. You will make the changes to the fourth plan. Because you are continuously chopping and changing the plan, this is called as a rolling plan. So what is IRDP? Please remember the name of the scheme. Beyond that, you don't have to worry about it. Beyond that, you do not have to be worried about it. If I want to discuss, you can spend hours together on schemes in the plans. But that is of no relevance for you. IRDP was a type of a scheme which was implemented in the 5th 5-year plan, later expanded even in the 6th 5-year plan. The concept was very simple: to promote job generation. The IRDP was actually implemented. Okay, done. So let me go to the 6th 5-year plan. Let me go to the 6th 5-year plan, implemented from 1980 to 85. What are the important points regarding the 6th 5-year plan? Point number 1. As usual, industrial production was promoted. Agriculture sector was promoted. As usual, industrialization as well as agriculture sector was promoted. After that, right, many schemes were implemented, expanded in order to address the issue of poverty. In order to alleviate, eradicate poverty, we actually, right, implemented, expanded a lot of these schemes. For example, IIDP itself. Now, in the sixth 5-year plan, one of the very important feature is also basically to promote infrastructure development. The sixth 5-year plan is also known for promotion of infrastructure development. Right. Apart from this is important. Please remember this. In the fourth 5-year plan, there was a discussion regarding regional level planning. There's a discussion regarding local level planning. But the sixth 5-year plan, funds were allocated. I repeat, funds were allocated to address the issues of regional disparities. Remember this? Funds were actually allocated to address the regional disparities. There were certain regional disparities. What do you mean by disparity? Some of the regions are very well developed. Some other regions, we are not seeing development. So there is a lot of disparity in the growth and development between these regions. For example, have you heard of Bimaru? Let me know. Have you heard of Bimaru states? Very recently, this was there in the newspapers. Right, my dear, you will not come across all of this in the books. Have you heard of Bimaru states? Right, very recently it was there in the newspapers. Right, one of the ministers of government of India used the term Bimaru states. So what is Bimaru? Bimaru is an acronym. Bihar, right, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. These states which had a very low development, these were collectively called as Bimaru states. Very simple. Right, Bimaru states is group of states which had experienced a very low level of development. And these, right, basically collectively were referred to as a Bimaru states. Right, argument is a very simple argument here. The growth that was experienced by India, the development that was experienced by India was uneven. Some of the states experienced a very high growth rate, very good development growth rate, whereas in case of other states, they were lagging behind. That is regional disparity. So the funds, right, the funds were released by the government in order to address, the funds were allocated by the government in order to address this kind of a regional disparity that was experienced. Okay, apart from this, sixth 5-year plan, please remember this. The sixth 5-year plan is also known for one very important point. It is the first 5-year plan to focus on gender issues. Remember this point. It is the first 5-year plan to focus on gender issues and women empowerment. It is the first 5-year plan to focus on gender issues as well as women empowerment. Right? Remember this particular point regarding 6th 5-year plan. Done? So what are the important points? Focus was laid on industrialization, agriculture sector. First 5-year plan to focus on gender issues, women empowerment. Right? We wanted to promote reduction in the poverty. So very high priority was given for poverty alleviation. It was the 5-year plan where funds were actually allocated to reduce the regional disparities, etc. So 5 to 6 points I've given regarding the 6th 5-year plan. Please go through that. Next, 7th 5-year plan. 7th 5-year plan, very well known 5-year plan. 7th 5-year plan. Why? Please remember point number 1. The 7th 5-year plan was the first 5-year plan where we were able to achieve 6% GDP growth rate. Where we were able to achieve 6% GDP growth rate. Point number 1. This 5-year plan was also known for one more point, that is financial year 89, agriculture sector. Agriculture sector achieved more than 10% growth rate, not GDP growth rate, more than 10% growth rate for the first time ever after independence. Apart from this, in the 7th 5-year plan, we wanted to promote a self-reliance. We wanted to promote modernization. We wanted to promote a higher GDP growth rate, etc. Right? Priority was given for more and more production of food, more industrial productivity, more employment generation. There was a focus on infrastructure, which started in the 6th 5-year plan, continued even in the 7th 5-year plan. Right? A role of small-scale industries, smaller industries, as well as food processing sector was actually promoted. And various other programs such as Jawahar Rozgar Yojana. Jawahar Rozgar Yojana was actually launched. And again, please understand my point here. In almost all the 5-year plans, different schemes have been launched. Different schemes. As far as I am concerned, only some of the schemes are relevant to you. Remember the schemes where they were actually launched. Remember, just by heart it. Do not waste your time. Just by heart it. For example, NREP, National Rural Employment Program, where in which 5-year plan NREP was launched? 6th 5-year plan. In which 5-year plan IRDP was launched? It was in the 5th 5-year plan. In which 5-year plan Jawahar Rozgar Yojana was launched? It was launched in the 7th 5-year plan. Right? So please remember the name of the schemes. Beyond that, please do not waste your time. As such, if you're reading newspapers, every day one or the other scheme is launched by the government of India. Already hundreds of schemes are there with you in the last 2 years. In addition to that, do not burden yourself by reading everything, even in planning. That will become very, very huge amount of information for you, which you will not be able to retain. Right? More than learning, you will become confused there. So don't worry about it. Simply remember which 5-year plan, which scheme was actually launched. Okay. Now, 8th 5-year plan. What is the importance of 8th 5-year plan? Liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms were implemented from the 8th 5-year plan. Very important. Liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms were implemented from the 8th 5-year plan. But apart from that, please understand one more point here. Private sector contribution in terms of investments. I repeat, private sector contribution in terms of investments started increasing from the 7th 5-year plan. Started increasing from the 7th 5-year plan, and in the 8th 5-year plan, they were more than 50% of the total investment in Indian economy. I'll repeat the statement here. 8th 5-year plan, what is it famous for? It is very famous for implementation of LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, which also meant private sector participation in the Indian economy actually increased. So was the investment done by the private sector. But it doesn't mean that it was only in the 8th 5-year plan private sector investment rose. No, even in the 7th 5-year plan, remember this, even in the 7th 5-year plan, Government of India's reforms were implemented, And as a result of which, basically the investment from the private sector started increasing in the 7th only. In the 8th, it was actually more than 50%. Out of the total investment in India, private sector investment was more than 50% in the 8th 5-year plan. Apart from this, right, a faster economic growth rate, growth in manufacturing sector, right, growth in agriculture sector, allied sectors were targeted under this. We were able to promote more and more imports as well as exports, because I hope remember, do you remember this? Import, right? Basically, a lot of restrictions were imposed. Import substitution was practiced earlier. We are doing this away now. We are basically doing it away. Import licensing, export licensing, all these norms were actually removed. That is the reason I've written, right? A growth rate is in exports as well as imports. Improvement in trade as well as a current account deficit. Sir, why have you written all of this? Please read what was the situation in 1991 in India. We have discussed all of this. In the concept of BOP, we have discussed what was the situation in 1991. In industrial policies, what was the situation in 1991? So argument was very simple. We were able to, right, overcome all these issues with implementation of reforms. Our exports started increasing. We liberalized imports. We started attracting a lot of foreign investment. Private sector investment started increasing. The fiscal deficit of the government of India also actually started reducing in the 8th 5-year plan. Done? Right? Now, apart from this, what is any other relevance? Are there any other point of relevance of 8th 5-year plan? Please remember this. 8th 5-year plan is known for one more thing. That is, it was the first plan. It was the first plan to target universal education. Universal elementary education. It was the first 5-year plan to target universal elementary education. Done? Right. So education was one of the focus areas of the 8th 5-year plan. So these are certain very important points regarding the 8th 5-year plan. Next, 9th FIP, 97 to 2002. Point number 1. The 9th 5-year plan was implemented, right, in the 50th year of independence. Remember this? It was implemented in the 50th, right, after independence, in the 50th year of independence, the 9th 5-year plan was actually implemented. Now, because it was basically an important 5-year plan, the government of India targeted again poverty alleviation. But more importantly, now we introduce the concept of 7 basic minimum services. Remember this. We introduce the concept of a basic minimum services. Now, what is the idea of a basic minimum services? Government of India stated that every household in India, every household, irrespective of whether it is rich, poor or middle income household, should get access to these minimum services. Minimum means every household should have at least these kind of access to services. For example, right, healthcare facility, safe drinking water facility, right, education, focus on education sector, assistance, if you do not have house, public assistance, housing assistance will be provided by the government, etc. So government of India identified 7 areas and said government will ensure that every household will have access to these services. These are very famously referred to as 7 minimum basic services. Apart from that, nutritional support was also the focus. Now, apart from this, 9th 5-year plan, focus again on private sector investment. We were able to attract a lot of private sector investment, not only from the domestic market, but also from the foreign market. And because of the reforms which were implemented by the government, liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms, we were able to attract a large amount of foreign direct investment into the domestic market. As usual, focus was there on addressing regional disparities, development in rural regions, development in agriculture sector, etc. Right now, in addition to all these points, the 9th 5-year plan is also known for one more thing. What is the other thing? Now there is a focus on fiscal consolidation. the fiscal prudence was one of the focus areas. What do you mean by fiscal consolidation? Please look back and tell me, when was the FRBM introduced in India? When was FRBM introduced in India? Introduced, not discussed, introduced. FRBM was introduced from 2003. All of you okay? FRBM was introduced from 2003. That would become 10th 5-year plan for you. 10th 5-year plan. Which means even before the FRBM was introduced, there is a lot of discussion that has been happening at the government level regarding the expenditures, regarding their subsidy expenditures, regarding their revenue generation, etc. So fiscal consolidation was being discussed even before FRBM was introduced, for example, in the 9th 5-year plan. In fact, from the 8th 5-year plan itself, it will start. From the 8th 5-year plan itself, it will start, because in the 8th 5-year plan, 92 to 97, our fiscal deficit was very high, expenditures were very high. We were targeting all of these. Okay. So plan also pursued a fiscal consolidation. Right, we were able to achieve accelerated growth. Accelerated means increasing growth rate along with maintaining stable price levels in the domestic market. So these are certainly very important points regarding the 9th 5-year plan. 10th 5-year plan. Right, 3 more plans are left out. Please have patience. Many of you are asking, sir, very difficult to remember. I know. I sympathize. I know these are very difficult to remember, not because points are difficult, because there are too many points for every plan. Right, you can revise it once or twice. Automatically you will learn certain tricks, how to connect, where to remember, etc, etc. For example, right, I'll give you certain tricks. Please tell me, 1971 is very important year in case of a polity subject. What is the importance of 1971? I'm just trying to tell you how to connect the dots. How do you remember these tricks? Right, 1971 is very important for you in case of polity. Why? Right, can I simply say again, not war, etc, etc? Yes, all those points are important, but in case of India, for polity, when you read about polity, don't you think 1971 becomes relevant? Because for many of the elections, we take 1971 population as the base. Yes or no? Right, the 1971 population is taken as the base, correct? Again, I know, sir, that case, this case, liberation of Bangladesh, etc., all those are relevant. I'm trying to tell you one more trick for economics here. Right, so population base, for many of the things, 1971 population is taken as a base. Sir, any example? Until very recently in finance commissions, in the finance commission, whenever they covered population, what was the population that they actually took? Think, I've given you a table also. Earlier. Right, 1971 was the base population that was considered. That was the population base that was considered. What about presidential election? What about a delimitation? I hope you understand. What about delimitation, presidential election, etc.? Which population is considered, right, for all of these? 1971 population. Now, can you connect 1971? Why that is important for you in terms of, let's say, the 5-year plans? That is the concept of the family planning. All of you are okay? In the 4th 5-year plan, which was implemented from 1969 to 74, don't you think it is related to all of this? And again, if you have connected the dots, it's good. If you have connected the dots, it is good. Otherwise, leave it. Simply by heart it. Right? All I can tell you is, yes, lot of facts are there. Try to make certain tricks so that you will be able to remember it for a longer duration. Ultimately, that is the objective. Okay, come back to this. 10th 5-year plan was implemented from 2002 to 2007. What is the specialty about 10th 5-year plan? Point number 1, FRBM was implemented. All of you okay with this? FRBM, right, Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act, was implemented in the 10th 5-year plan. Let me ask you one more question. Let me see how many of you are reading. From which year Manrega was implemented? Let me see. From which year Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, was implemented? Right? Let me see. It was during this period only. It was during this period only. That's the reason I'm asking. Manrega, please check it. Second, 8% GDP growth rate. 8% GDP growth rate. Okay, so 8% GDP growth rate per year was the target here. We wanted to reduce poverty by 5 percentage points. We were not able to do that. Don't worry. Right? We targeted that. We should be able to reduce poverty by 5 percentage. We wanted to create a more and more high quality jobs in this particular phase. We wanted to reduce gender gaps in literacy and wage rates by at least 50%. Gender gaps in literacy means what? How much of the male population is illiterate? How much of the female population is literate? Right? That particular percentage, there was always a gap. And there was a more percentage of male population which was considered to be literate compared to female population. We wanted to reduce the gap. We actually wanted to reduce that particular gap. All children should be in school by 2003. Right? Again, a very ambitious literacy rates, right, to basically target at 75%, right, in the 10th 5-year plan. And portable drinking water will be provided to all the houses. In fact, please understand this. You will come across many of these in multiple 5-year plans. For example, don't you think drinking water was also one of the 20-point programs? Drinking water was also part of the 9th 5-year plan, basic minimum services, which means we kept these as targets in multiple 5-year plans. We were not able to implement them satisfactorily. We have dragged it on. We have kept on dragging it on in multiple 5-year plans. Right? So these are certain important points. Reduce literacy rate gap, wage rate gap that is existing between male and female population, reduce poverty numbers, increase the availability of safe drinking water, right? FRBM Act, Manrega, all these are basically the important points regarding 10th 5-year plan. All these are the important points regarding 10th 5-year plan. Done? Okay. 11th 5-year plan. Please remember, very important point. For the first time ever, we introduced the concept of inclusive growth as a central theme of a 5-year plan. The 11th 5-year plan, what is it known for? For the first time, we introduced the concept of inclusive growth. We included inclusive growth as a part of a strategy in a 5-year plan. Now, what do you mean by inclusive growth? Inclusive growth refers to the pace of growth as well as a pattern of growth. Inclusive growth refers to pace of growth and pattern of growth. Let me explain this. What do you mean by pace of growth and pattern of growth? That's simple question to all of you. Is it okay if India becomes a $5 trillion economy plus with the highest poor population in the world? Let me know. All of you okay with this? India will achieve $5 trillion, but along with that, India will also have highest poor population in the global market. You should say no to this. Some of you are saying, yes, sir, we are happy with this. No, you should never be happy. Why? Please tell me, if GDP increases to 5 trillion from 3.2 to 3.3 trillion, which is existing today, if it becomes a $5 trillion, no doubt, we have been able to achieve high GDP growth rate in the economy. But don't you think with a higher GDP growth rate, incomes of the people should have increased? Correct or no? The incomes of the population should have increased. More and more jobs should have been created, which means more and more people earning income, they should have moved out of poverty. But what has happened? What has happened in this example? We have achieved GDP, no doubt. We have excelled in the GDP growth rate, but the benefit of the growth has not reached all the sections of the society. Is it okay? Can I say this now? I'll repeat it again. We have been able to achieve this growth, which is right, very satisfactory. But the benefit of growth has not reached to all the sections of the society. Sir, what do you mean by this? Let me give a very simple example. How GDP is calculated? Can I say GDP is calculated using incomes of the people? Do you remember that? GDP can be calculated using, right, incomes of, right, the service providers, income method, production method. So third class, what we discussed in the third class, I'm mentioning that in the 23rd class. So please be very careful. Let's say there are three people, A, B, and C. A is earning 100, B is earning, let's say, 200, C is earning 5,700. Which means in this example, the overall income, that is basically GDP, is how much? 6,000 rupees. Now, can it become 10,000 rupees? Of course, yes. Can it become 10,000? But what if it becomes like this? 9,800, right? 100 and another 100. Right? Do you think the situation of the people, right? The situation of the people has actually improved from the first example to the second example? No. That is the reason. Please remember this. Achieving GDP is important, no doubt. Achieving higher GDP is good for Indian economy. But it is also important to ensure that the benefit of higher GDP will be flowing down, will go to all the sections of the society. Now tell me, can I say this is a pace of the growth as well as a pattern of the growth? Can I call this as a pace as well as a pattern of the growth? What is the pattern of the growth we are achieving, along with what is the pace of the growth we are achieving? That is called as inclusive growth. In simple terms, if we are able to achieve growth along with the development, if we are able to achieve growth along with the development, that would be referred to as an inclusive growth. Anybody has an issue? Let me know. Anybody has an issue with the terminology inclusive growth? Now tell me, looking at the last 2 to 3 years, actually what is happening in Indian economy? Do you think we are achieving inclusive growth in India? Think of it. We are achieving inclusive growth in India. No doubt government is implementing reforms. Again, I'm not saying government is not doing anything. Please do not twist my words. I'm not saying government is not doing anything. We are implementing reforms. We have been able to reduce poverty to a certain extent. We have been able to create jobs to a certain extent. But don't you think even today, lot of income disparities existing in India? All of you okay with this? Lot of income gaps are present in India. Lot of wealth gap is present in India. In fact, as per one of the report, I'll show you that later. The income gap and the wealth gap, as per this report, because of the pandemic, has actually increased in India. I'll repeat the statement. There are multiple reports. As per one of the reports, the gap of income in India, the gap of wealth in India has actually increased because of the pandemic. Right? Because of the pandemic, that gap has actually increased. And not just that, not just right, the income gap and wealth gap, there is gender inequality also present in India. Gender inequality. What do you mean by gender inequality? I'm referring to income inequality here. Around 18% of the total incomes generated in India are earned by women population, women workers, around 18%. And remaining 82% is earned by the male population. So can you imagine to what extent gender income inequalities are actually present in India? So we are moving towards inclusive growth, but there is a long way to actually achieve inclusive growth in India. So as a concept, for the first time, inclusive growth was introduced in the 11th 5-year plan. For this, achieving inclusive growth, a comprehensive strategy was provided in the 11th 5-year plan. We wanted to empower the population by providing skilling, right? By providing skilling to the population, by promoting education, right? Gender inequalities which are present, we wanted to reduce these gender inequalities in the 11th 5-year plan. Drinking water facility, as well as right, the targets for agriculture sector, GDP, etc., etc. These were the provisions in the 11th 5-year plan. Done. So final, last 5-year plan, in fact, not at all important. Reason is simple. We were not able to implement the 12th 5-year plan completely. Okay. We were not able to implement the 12th 5-year plan completely. Why? I hope you remember this point yesterday. 2015, we abolished planning commission. Please look at the point here. 2015, we abolished planning commission. We have a new authority now. So when you abolish planning commission, will you be able to implement the plan completely? Of course, no, that's not possible. So 12th five-year plan, what was the concept? One, we wanted to achieve a faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. That was the central theme. Please remember, I don't think so UPSC will ask you this. It was actually asked earlier. This was asked earlier by UPSC. Faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. In this 12th five-year plan, Government of India introduced the concept of 25 monitorable targets. 25 monitorable targets were introduced. For example, agriculture sector should grow by this much. GDP, right? GDP should grow by this much. Right? Overall industries should grow by this much, etc. So targets, 25 targets were actually set up in the 12th five-year plan. And individually for the states also in multiple five-year plans, individually for the states also targets have been provided. So manufacturing should grow at 10%, agriculture sector should grow at 4%, the GDP, real GDP should grow at 8%. These kind of targets were given in the 12th five-year plan. This is basically the point related to 12th FIP. Nothing more than this is required for you for UPSC for a simple reason. We have not implemented the 12th five-year plan completely. We were not able to implement it because we abolished planning commission midway, and we replaced planning commission, or we abolished planning commission and introduced a new authority by the name of National Institution for Transforming India, Niti Aayog. Done? Okay, right. So these are the 12 five-year plans. Let me go to the next evaluation of 12 five-year plans. Any problem so far? Any problem? A shift in the pattern of industrialization with lower emphasis on heavy industries and more on infrastructure began in 8th FIP. I will not say that we gave lower importance to industrialization. I will not say that. What I would say is infrastructure was targeted mainly from the 7th, 8th five-year plan. Right? I will not say 8th five-year plan is not 8th five-year plan. We gave lesser emphasis for industry. No, I did not say that. It was basically a promotion of industrialization done in the 7th five-year plan, and especially from the 8th five-year plan. Especially from 8th five-year plan. Done? Okay. Can we go forward? Now, what is the evaluation of economic planning? What is the evaluation of economic planning? Right? Let's look at achievements. Let's look at certain drawbacks or right, let's say failures of planning commission. Then we can make a conclusion on that. And there are two students who are asking, sir, explain Niti Aayog. My dear, I have not yet completed planning. See, there is a discussion on Niti Aayog. Have patience. Have patience. We'll come to Niti Aayog. What are the achievements of economic planning? Right, point by point. Point number one, we were able to increase our agriculture production from a country which was dependent on the import. Today, we are exporting country for agriculture sector. All of you okay with this? Let me know. In fact, to a very great extent, India has a very high power in the sense, has a very high influence in the overall international agriculture market. For example, sir, how can you say we have a very high influence in the international market? Very recently, Government of India banned wheat exports. Very recently, Government of India has banned rice exports. And as a result of this, can you see what is happening in the international market? In the last 1 week, have you not come across articles where many other countries are asking Government of India, please allow us to import rice from you. Please allow us to import wheat from you. So I hope you understand, from a country which faced scarcity, from the country which faced scarcity, now we are a country which are exporting to the international market. So that is an achievement. That is very important achievement. Second, GDP growth rate also has increased. All of you okay with this? GDP growth rate also has increased. In fact, right, yesterday one of the student was asking, sir, what is this term Hindu growth rate? What is this term Hindu growth rate? Now please understand, do not get stuck up with the term Hindu there. I'll repeat it again. Do not get stuck up with the term Hindu. It does not have anything to do with the religion. right? The term was actually coined by one of the professor by the name of Professor Rajakrishna. Professor Rajakrishna. What is the meaning of the Hindu rate of growth? In one of the speeches Mr. Rajkrishna gave, the professor basically cited, economist by the way, professor cited that doesn't matter whatever the government does, doesn't matter whatever government of India will do, we will not be able to go beyond 4 to 4.5% GDP growth rate. I'll repeat the statement. Right? The argument of this economist was that doesn't matter whatever policies are implemented by the government, right? Our situation is such that our GDP growth rate will not cross beyond 4 to 4.5%. And that he stated that it is a Hindu rate of growth. Again, please understand the term Hindu does not have anything to do with the religion here. Many people have connected the term Hindu with philosophical thinking, philosophy, Hindu philosophy. Right? Meaning what? We should be content with whatever we have. All of you know this? We should be content with whatever we have. Right? So that is basically the argument of Hindu rate of growth. He stated that doesn't matter whatever government policies are, government will keep on making changes in the policies. We will not be able to go beyond this particular 4 to 4.5% growth rate. That is basically the term Hindu growth rate. In fact, last year, right, last 3 to 6 months, this term Hindu growth rate has become very famous. Has anybody come across this? Former RBI governor basically stated that, right? Basically stated that we are stuck up in this particular range of 4 to 5% GDP growth rate. He said we have returned back to Hindu growth rate. Now, beyond that, you do not do a PhD on this. Beyond this, you do not do a PhD. Those who are asking, sir, why he used the term Hindu, what was his thinking, etc. There is an essay, there is a speech given by Mr. Professor Raj Krishna. You will get it on internet. You can download and read it. But I would simply say it is useless. It is not at all needed for UPSC. Beyond this, there is no importance of this. Do not waste your time. Now, what are the achievements? GDP growth rate was very high now, especially post 1990. Especially post 1990, we have been able to achieve 5%, 6%, 7%, 8% GDP growth rate. Right? Industrial growth rate has improved. The BPL population, what is BPL? BPL stands for below poverty line. Below poverty line. BPL stands for below poverty line. It means how much of our population is actually considered to be poor. The below poverty line population, the percentage actually has reduced. For example, remember this, in 1990s, more than 40% of our population, was considered to be poor. By 2011, this has come down to 21.9%. By 2011, this has actually come down to 21.9%. So, below poverty line, poor population in India has decreased. Food production also has increased. Right? We have been able to produce more and more, export more and more to the international market. Okay? Having said so, what are the areas where planning has actually failed? Where planning has failed? For example, land reforms were introduced, announced in multiple 5-year plans. Land reforms have not been implemented uniformly across India. Sir, why? Why there is no uniform application of land reforms? Simple argument is, reforms were announced by the center, they were supposed to be implemented by the states. Is it okay? I'll repeat it. Reforms were announced by the center, but were implemented by the states. And because these were implemented by the state, there is no uniformity. Many of the states did not implement the reforms completely. Right? So, one, land reforms were not implemented, right, uniformly across India. Second, despite targeting, right, despite having measures to reduce, to control the growth of the population, we were not able to control the population growth rate. In some of the states, there was a population explosion. In some of the states, a population actually was, the growth rate was actually brought under control. Third, regional disparities. Right? The policy in multiple 5-year plans, we had policies for reducing regional disparities. right? But even today, regional disparities are present, income inequalities are present, poor population, number of people, not percentage. I repeat, number of people who are poor, it is also very high in India. Apart from this, have a look at this. The GDP contribution is uneven. Skewed means uneven. Sir, what do you mean by GDP contribution is skewed here? Agriculture accounts for around 49% of working population in India. I repeat, agriculture sector accounts for around 49% of working population in India. Agriculture accounts for 16 to 17% contribution to GDP. So despite having so much of working population, contribution is very, very less, which means you can imagine what would be the incomes generated in the agriculture sector. So contribution of agriculture sector, right, is very less despite having too much labor, right? Uneven contribution to the growth. Employment growth rate is also very slow, especially in recent times. Unemployment rate is actually increasing in the domestic market. Done. So these are right. These are some of the issues, right, which you can simply say represent a failure or unsatisfactory. Let's say the performance of the planning commission. In fact, I've written one more term here: no structural mechanism for regular engagement with the states. And the third one is one size fits all approach. What do you mean by this? Do you remember planning commission composition? Planning commission composition. Did we have representation of the states in the planning commission? No. Right? We did not have representation of the states in the place where plans were prepared. Right? The states only came into picture after the preparation of the plan. So we did not have a mechanism where, right, we would simply have the representation of the states. Right? That is one point. And second one is, you have made a plan. Imagine your planning commission, you have prepared a plan. Please tell me, do you think every state's requirement will be same? Think of it. Do you think the state's requirement, every state in India will have the same requirement? Of course, no. In fact, please understand, right? I forgot to tell you this point. Northeastern states, do you remember this? Northeastern states were for the first time brought into the mainstream in the sense concept of planning. Northeastern states were actually brought into the concept of planning in the 11th 5-year plan. In the 11th 5-year plan, we specifically stated that Northeastern states are not getting benefit. These are remaining out of the purview of the overall growth that is taking place in the Indian economy. So in fact, in this particular plan, Government of India said we should bring Northeastern states also into the growth that is taking place in the Indian economy. Meaning what? Promote industrialization, promote employability in the Northeastern states, because these are remaining out of the growth that is actually taking place in the whole of Indian economy. So argument was very simple. Different states will require different approach, right? Every state will have their own requirement. But in the planning, we did not follow this. We simply said one plan for whole of India. One size fits all approach. Okay, so that is one more criticism regarding the concept of 5-year planning in India. So what is the overall verdict? What should be a verdict? Has planning been right extremely successful in India, or has planning been a full failure in India? You cannot take either of the two extreme sides. Please say we have been able to achieve progress in various sectors that we set out to achieve. For example, agriculture sector. Did we achieve progress in agriculture sector? Of course, yes. Right? That is from the country which faced scarcity. Today we are exporting. That is a success for us. So in certain areas which were the targets under GDP, we have been able to achieve right satisfactory performance in this. Having said so, there are also certain areas which going forward Government of India should implement reforms in order to address the problems in these areas. Done? Right? So that is basically the verdict that you will have to provide. Now, what are the reasons why we have lagged behind in some of the areas? Investment has become lower there, right? Social infrastructure was focused very, very recently, right? The lot of corruption is also there in the system. Because of all of these reforms, all of these problems, we have not been able to achieve, right, certain targets in certain areas. Done. So this is the evaluation. This is the evaluation regarding planning commission. Any doubts? But sir, in NDC states were present, then how states were not involved? My dear, role of NDC is not to prepare a 5-year plan. Role of NDC is to approve and discuss 5-year plan. So the planning stage is preparation of the planning. The states were not involved in the planning commission. That is the criticism. Okay. Okay. Any other doubts? Any other doubts? Done. Next, Niti Ayog. Next concept is Niti Ayog. Please explain the point of one plan fits for all. You have a 5-year plan for whole of India. State of Karnataka would have different requirement. State of Bihar, state of Rajasthan, every state would have a different requirement altogether. But you have prepared one plan for whole of India. Right? So rather than having a different approach for different states requirement, you have only one plan for the whole of India. Okay. Please explain again in brief of FI plan for family. What do you want to understand in family planning? If your question is explain in brief family planning, what do you want to understand in family planning? Nothing is relevant for UPSC. Don't worry. You don't have to read family planning for UPSC. Not related. Okay. North states are excluded or included in planning or development. My dear, there is no plan which says let's exclude northeastern states. There is no plan. What the plan stated was northeastern states are not enjoying the benefits of growth that the rest of India is enjoying. Can you understand the argument here? No plan said let's exclude the northeastern states. The plan stated that the growth is happening in India and many of the states in India are experiencing the benefit of growth. Sir, what do you mean by experiencing benefit of growth? Per capita income increases, the state gross domestic product increases, the employment increases, etc. But there are certain states, right, that is northeastern states, which are not getting the same benefit. So why don't we promote industrialization there? Why don't we promote right skilling initiatives there, so that they will also become part of the growth benefits that rest of the states are enjoying? That was the argument of 5-year plan. Okay. Next, come to Niti Ayog now. Niti Ayog as an institution was established by the government in 2015. We abolished planning commission. We brought in Niti Ayog. What is the long form of Niti Ayog? National Institute for Transforming India. Niti Ayog simply stands for National Institute for Transforming India. Now, what is the composition of Niti Ayog? Please understand, there are two very important pillars of Niti Ayog. One is the full-time organization. Second one is governing council. One is a full-time organization. Second one is governing council. In the full-time organization, the chairperson is a prime minister. Whoever is the prime minister by default will become, right, the chairperson. In addition to the chairperson, there is also vice chairperson. There is also CEO, right? There are also experts as well as certain government appointees in the full-time organization. Right? So I'll repeat it: prime minister, the CEO, vice chairperson, right, plus right certain appointees of government, experts who are appointed by the government, who are part of the full-time composition of Niti Ayog. But apart from this, in Niti Ayog, there is also one more entity or part of Niti Ayog, which is called as governing council. Who is the chairperson of governing council? Again, it is the prime minister. Prime minister who is the chairperson. But in addition to the chairperson here, the governing council will also have representation from all the states. This is very important. We'll have representation from all the states. That is, in the governing council, apart from the prime minister, we will have chief ministers as well as the lieutenant governors of union territories. So now tell me, based on only this information, please tell me, can I say there is a huge difference between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog? Let me know. Only on this. I have not even told you what are the functions of Niti Aayog. Only based on this, can I say in the composition itself, right? Some of you are saying no. What is your answer? You tell me. Right? What is your answer? Why are you saying no? You tell me. There is a huge difference in Planning Commission as well as Niti Aayog. In fact, I hope you understand this. In Planning Commission, there was no representation of the states. Here, there is a representation of the states. In the policy making, whatever Niti Aayog does, in the policy making, there is a participation of the states. Can I say this is a prime example of cooperative federalism? Let me know. This is a prime example of cooperative federalism. Right? Sir, any other example of cooperative federalism? Another example that we have discussed in economics for cooperative federalism is GST Council. Correct? GST Council. In case of GST Council also, you will see representation of the center plus states. In Niti Aayog also, you see the representation of the center plus states. And those who are asking what is cooperative federalism, logic is simple. Cooperative federalism refers to a system wherein both the center and the state, both the center and the state will come together to implement a policy. For effective implementation, both are coming together. That is called as cooperative federalism. So we have governing council, we have full-time organization. Chairperson is common, that is Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the chairperson. Now, what is the objective? What is basically the role of Niti Aayog? Point number one. Right, point number one. To evolve a shared vision for national development, priorities, sectors, and strategies with active involvement of the states. Now, many of you ask me, sir, should we remember all these? I will try to make it simple here. Rather than by-hearting technical statement, let's make it simple. Point number one. Niti Aayog will basically create a certain strategies after taking the input of industries, after taking the inputs from the state government. Now, what is the strategy? The strategy could be for promotion of agriculture sector. The strategy could be for promotion of industries. The strategy could be for promotion of electric vehicles, etc. Simple argument. So, Niti Aayog will take inputs, create a strategy and advise, give it as a recommendation to Government of India. Please remember, recommendations. It is an advisory body. Niti Aayog is not a constitutional authority. Please remember this. Niti Aayog is not a constitutional authority. Neither was a planning commission. So it will simply give inputs to Government of India. Now, whether to follow those advices or not, it is entirely left to Government of India. Entirely the prerogative of Government of India. So first one, right, provide certain strategies, right, based on the input, provide certain strategy to government. Second, rather than Niti Aayog giving recommendations on their, right, let's say studies or surveys, Government of India can refer a subject to Niti Aayog. Government of India can ask Niti Aayog to study on something and give recommendation to Government of India. For example, all of you remember National Food Security Act? Tell me, all of you remember what is the coverage of population under NFSA? How much percentage of the population do we cover under NFSA? We cover 67% of 2011 population. Two-thirds, 67%, two-thirds of 2011 population. And I'd asked you this question earlier. Because we are covering 67% of 2011 population, don't you think the coverage is outdated now? Meaning what? What is the population of India today? It is much different compared to what was the population earlier. So don't you think we will have to relook, right? Have a look at how population is covered under NFSA. So Government of India has asked the Niti Aayog, I repeat, Government of India has asked Niti Aayog to look into the coverage of population of NFSA. So point one, Niti Aayog itself can give recommendation to Government of India. Point number two, Government of India can advise or can ask Niti Aayog to give recommendations on a particular subject which is of national importance for government. Third, the Niti Aayog, basically we say, follows a bottom-up approach. Remember this. Niti Aayog, we say, follows a bottom-up approach. What do you mean by bottom-up approach? You want to create a strategy, you want to create a plan for India. Rather than first creating plan, then implementing for the whole of India, what you will do is create a plan for one district. Right? Pilot. Create a plan for one district, implement it. Then study, was there any problem for the plan? Then apply it to a state. Then apply it to all the states. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. What is bottom-up approach? Rather than creating a plan or a strategy for whole of India and then implementing it, first create a strategy or a plan for a very small unit. Right? For example, group of villages or right, certain districts. Then implement it right at the state level, then implement it for the whole of India. So remember this, right? The Niti Aayog follows a bottom-up approach. In concept of any strategy or planning, they will follow bottom-up approach. Right? Third one we already covered. There are certain sections of our society, right? Certain population is there which is not getting the benefit of economic growth. GDP is increasing, but this population continuously remains poor. So why don't we formulate strategies, formulate policies so that even this population will start getting the benefit? For example, skilling for certain population. For example, providing right vocational training for them, right? Ensuring job opportunities are available in the market so that they will also start getting the benefit of growth that rest of the India is experiencing. Next, to design a strategic long-term policy and program and initiatives to and monitor their progress. To design certain strategies which are strategic and long-term, right? Help Government of India in implementation and monitor them. Monitor the implementation of these strategies. To promote cooperative federalism, right? By supporting initiatives with the states. Right, so these are some of the objectives. Right, do not by heart the statements. Understand, make it simple. One, to promote right certain strategies by giving recommendation to the central government. Take the inputs, give recommendations. Central government will advise, right, ask you to advise something, right? Take that subject and give advice to central government. Follow bottom-up approach in the concept of planning. Promote cooperative federalism between a central government and state government. Right? There are certain populations which are not getting the benefit of growth. Right? Study how can we bring them, how can we promote growth, development in these populations as well. So these are some of the objectives, right, of Niti Aayog. What is the difference between Planning Commission, Niti Aayog? Central government institution without any representation of the states. Niti Aayog, it is again an executive body, right, sir? How Niti Aayog was set up? Right, basically through the order of the government. Just like Planning Commission, even Niti Aayog was established with the order of the government, executive authority. It is a think tank. Think tank means an advisory authority, advisory body, which will have participation of the states and promote cooperative federalism. The Planning Commission followed a top to bottom approach of planning. Have a plan for whole of India, every state will implement it. In case of Niti Aayog, bottom up approach with participation of the states. Planning Commission had the power to decide what should be the growth rate for India, what should be the growth rate in the agriculture sector, what should be the growth rate for industries. Niti Aayog does not decide the targets. Niti Aayog does not have the power to decide the targets. Right? They are not even preparing 5-year plans. So there are no 5-year plans prepared by the Niti Aayog. Right? So basically, what is the role? They will create strategies and give it as a recommendation to government. It's a think tank, advisory authority. Right? So evolve strategies to promote participation of industries, participation of the states, and give it as a recommendation to the center. The Planning Commission allocated finances to the states. They gave finances to the states. The Niti Aayog does not have any powers to deal with finances. Niti Aayog does not have any financial powers. It was Planning Commission was an advisory body with financial power. Niti Aayog is nothing but an advisory body. Okay, so these are certain very important points representing the differences between Planning Commission as well as Niti Aayog. Okay, done. So Niti Aayog will give recommendations for every year, for every 5 years. My dear, they will give recommendations regarding strategies. For example, Niti Aayog will give recommendations to promote, let's say, consumption of electric vehicles in India. Niti Aayog will give recommendations to promote organic farming in India. It is a strategy. It is not time bound. It is a strategy like this. Okay. Is Niti Aayog a statutory advisory body? No, my dear. There is no bill. There is no law regarding Niti Aayog. It is an executive authority. Meaning what? Authority set up through the executive order of Government of India. For example, tomorrow Government of India can simply say, we will abolish Niti Aayog. Because the government has the power, they can abolish Niti Aayog very easily. Is there any voting percentage for central and states like GST Council? No. There's no voting percentage. Okay. Done. So what is the importance of Niti Aayog? What is the importance of Niti Aayog? One, it holds consultations with the state governments. It holds consultations with the industry bodies and take inputs, give strategies to central government. It is acting like an intermediary. It is acting like a connecting point between the center with the states, center with various industries. Okay, has provided strategic inputs to the government in various sectors. I'll give you examples. Have patience. I'll give you examples. It could also promote a spirit of competitive federalism. What do you mean by competitive federalism? Let me give a very simple example. Niti Aayog publishes multiple indices. I'll give you one example. Have you heard of Export Preparedness Index? Let me know. Have you heard of Export Preparedness Index? Sir, was it there in the newspapers? In the last 2 months, you checked the newspapers, it was there. Export Preparedness Index, EPI, very, very famous. Niti Aayog, based on parameters, there are different parameters. Based on the parameters, will give ranking to the states. I repeat, Niti Aayog publishes multiple indices. There is a composite water management index, export preparedness index is there. Multiple indices are published by Niti Aayog. What is the argument here? If a state is performing very well, these will be ranked much better. A simple question to all of you. Imagine you are an investor. You want to set up a manufacturing facility in India so that you can export. You can export it to international market. Please tell me, will you invest in a state which is ranked 25th in the export preparedness index, or will you think of investing in the states which are ranked in the top 5 in this index? Think of it. Please do let me know. Rankings are given, right? So the best performing states are top 5 and bottom 5. You are an investor and you want to invest to set up a manufacturing facility and export it from India. Will you prefer those states which are ranked very bottom or in the top? Of course, you will be attracted to the top 5. Why? Why would you attracted? Because now you know, okay, these have very good infrastructure. For example, taking licenses is very easy in these states. They have got very good export infrastructure. These are very nearby to, let's say, the port infrastructure, etc. So tell me now, these kind of indices, will they promote competition between the states or no? Right, think of it. These kind of indices or rankings which are published by the Niti Aayog, will they promote competition? Of course, yes. That is the reason this is called as competitive federalism. Competitive federalism means through policies, we are promoting, through certain measures or policies, we are promoting competition between the states. That is the reason this is called as competitive federalism. Has introduced the concept of accountability in the planning system. That is, any schemes, any programs that are implemented, right? We have set up an authority under the Niti Aayog. Please remember, DMEO, Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office. It is part of Niti Aayog. Part of Niti Aayog. Argument is basically this office, which is part of Niti Aayog, will keep a track of the policies which are implemented by the government, right? They will track how these policies are being implemented, how much expenditure is being done, what is the effectiveness, etc., etc. That is basically the role of Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office. Done? Now, those who are asking, sir, any recommendations of Niti Aayog? I'll give you a list of recommendations. I'll give you around 10 to 12 recommendations. Please remember them. At least 4 to 5 you remember. What is the importance of this? What if UPSC will ask you a question on give the importance of Niti Aayog? What is a Niti Aayog? Right? How Niti Aayog is important? Elaborate in 250 words. You'll have to give certain examples. So where has Niti Aayog actually played a role in Indian economy? What has been the performance of Niti Aayog? First one, Government of India under Niti Aayog had set up a committee, Bibek Debroy Committee. This Bibek Debroy Committee recommended how can we change the Indian railways system. Bibek Debroy Committee recommended how this India's railway system can be revamped, restructured. In fact, based on these recommendations, a lot of changes have been done by the government. For example, it was this committee which recommended that we should do away with the concept of separate railway budget. There is no need. There is absolutely no need. Let's do away with the concept of separate railway budget. Second, government also set up Arvind Panagiria Committee. Arvind Panagiria Committee. This Arvind Panagiria Committee recommended, right, gave recommendations regarding the bullet train project in India. All of you heard of bullet train project? This committee recommended regarding bullet train project in India, right? That is, right, the task force was set up to recommend regarding high-speed railway project in India. Third one, Tajamul Haq Committee. Tajamul Haq Committee. Now, what was the recommendation of Tajamul Haq Committee? Please understand, there is a concept of land leasing. There is this concept of land leasing. What do you mean by land leasing? Imagine you become an IAS officer. Okay, let's say next year you become IAS officer. You will have to go to Mussoorie now. After Mussoorie, you will be posted in different states according to your, right, let's say ranking, etc. Now tell me, do you think you will have sufficient time to go to your village and start practicing agriculture? No, of course no. You will not have time, right? Agriculture was will be the least priority for you after that. But you own, let's say, certain amount of agriculture land. So what you will do is, you will tell me, sir, I have become IAS officer, so I cannot cultivate on this land. So what you do is, you take the land on lease basis, you cultivate. You cultivate. But please understand the problem here. Historically, this is called as land leasing. You will give land on rental basis to somebody else for cultivation. That is basically concept of land leasing. Historically, what has happened is, in India, land leasing, oral agreements are made. Can you understand the term here? I'll repeat it again. Historically in India, land leasing agreements are oral in nature. We will discuss it orally, we'll come to agreement orally. There is no written document. Right? There is no written document. Written agreements are not there. What is the problem with that? Please tell me, after 1 year, can there be a dispute between both of us? Let me know. Can there be arisal of dispute between both of us? Of course, yes. That is natural. Now, if there is a dispute regarding what was supposed to be done, how much money was supposed to be given, where is the agreement to come to a conclusion? Where is the agreement? You will say, sir, I asked you to give me so much amount of money. I will say, no, we agreed to so much amount of money. So dispute, right? So how do you address all of this? How do you address all of it? That is the reason Land Leasing Act was proposed by Tajamul Haq Committee. Land Leasing Act. And under this Land Leasing Act, which was proposed by Tajamul Haq Committee, the argument of agreements, right, was put forward. Everything has to be formal now. Every land leasing has to have an agreement, written documents should be there. And these written documents will have legal protection. Legal protection in the sense, imagine there is a legal agreement between you and me for land leasing. As per that agreement, everything has to be followed. And if you violate, I can drag you to court. If I violate, you will drag me to court. That is basically the concept of Land Leasing Act. Right? Many of the states are yet to even take up the discussion on Land Leasing Act. Okay. Next, it has been asked to recommend regarding the population coverage under NFSA, National Food Security Act. Interministerial committee has been set up to monitor setting up of new urea plants. New urea plants in India, that is at Ramagundam, Talcher, right, Gorakhpur, Sindri and Barauni. Right, these are the different places. Right, for example, Talcher is in Orissa. Right, so different states we have identified these places where urea plants are supposed to be set up. There is also a task force which has been constituted under the chairmanship of Mr. Ramesh Chand to give recommendations regarding sugar sector. That sugarcane sector, lot of volatility is there in this sugar sector. I hope you understand this. Sugar industry, sugarcane cultivation, lot of volatility is there. So what is a long-term solution for this? The committee has been set up. Right, the dependence on the state assistance as well as a farm diversification, etc. Recommendations are basically supposed to be taken. Niti Aayog has constituted a committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Justice A.K. Sikri. Justice A.K. Sikri, right, to formulate an action plan for online dispute resolution. Online dispute resolution. Now, what is this idea for online dispute resolution? Argument is very simple here. Whenever cases are filed in India, physical documents are created. For hearings, physically people will have to go. Right, the documents are shifted, right, from one authority to another authority. Physical documents are given. Rather than this, please think of it. What if the whole system is digitized? I'll repeat it. Rather than creating physical documents, rather having in-person hearing, etc. What if the whole system will be made digital now? Digital means what? Just like you're attending classes online. What if hearings are done online? Think of it. What if the documents, right, which are supposed to be created and submitted to the court, all these is done online? That is digital copies, digital versions of everything. If that is happening, don't you think the cases, right, the cases can be resolved much sooner? Yes or no? The cases can be resolved much sooner. Right, the time taken for submission of documents, right, the presence of the parties, etc., all of that will be taken care of. That is a concept of online dispute resolution. And that was basically the argument, or that was basically the focus of Justice A.K. Sikri committee. Okay, can we use online dispute resolution to reduce the burden, right, to reduce the number of cases, to reduce the number of appeals, etc. Now, what is the criticism against Niti Aayog? What are the concerns regarding the functioning of Niti Aayog? First one, think of this and please do let me know. If there is one authority which will continuously give you advice, recommendations, and government has the executive control over this authority, can there be a concern that the authority might only give recommendations which are acceptable to the government? Think of it. Again, can this be a concern? I'm not saying Niti Aayog is doing it. Can there be a concern? That is, Niti Aayog will basically give recommendations which government of India will be happy with. Niti Aayog will not criticize any of the policies, will not find out loopholes in any of the policies of the government. Can this happen? Yes, there is a concern regarding it because it is an executive authority. It is an executive authority. There is a concern that it may not work independent. It may not work independent of the government. Again, please do not make it right. Do not make it more political in nature. Just it's a concern. It is not a constitutional body. and it cannot be held accountable by the parliament. And for example, Comptroller Auditor General, think of it, Comptroller Auditor General, Supreme Court of India, all these are constitutional authorities. Can you remove a judge of Supreme Court just like that? Let me know. Right? Chief Justice of India. Can you remove the Chief Justice of India because the government of India is not happy with Chief Justice of India? Absolutely no. Those who are saying yes, my dear, read polity very carefully. Right? There is a process which is supposed to be followed. There is a process which is supposed to be followed. Comptroller Auditor General of India. Can you remove CAG just like that? No. There is a process. On the other side, Niti Aayog. Can you make a change in Niti Aayog chairman? I'm sorry, vice chairman, not chairman, because Prime Minister by default becomes a chairman. Can you remove a vice chairman of Niti Aayog tomorrow? Of course, yes. Can you remove and appoint someone else as a CEO of Niti Aayog tomorrow? Of course, yes. That can be done very, very easily. So there is a concern that there cannot be, right? There might be a situation where Niti Aayog may not work independent, might not advise, right, as a independent think tank. It does not have any role in certain very important policies of the government. For example, GST, goods and services tax. Okay, goods and services tax. GST is a very important reform. What is the role of Niti Aayog in GST? Absolutely nothing. So there are certain very important policies. Niti Aayog does not have any role despite being such a very important advisory authority. Third one, it does not influence any kind of investment, either public or private, because Niti Aayog does not have any financial powers. Planning Commission had financial powers. Planning Commission used to allocate funds for the implementation of 5-year plans by the states. But Niti Aayog does not have any financial powers. They can only give recommendation to Government of India. Government will make policy. Government will attract more and more investment. Niti Aayog does not have a role there. Despite setting up of Niti Aayog, 2015 and 2023, around 8 years. Despite the setting up of Niti Aayog, even today, income disparity is existing. Income inequalities are present. Gender disparities are present. Certain population even today is not getting the benefit of growth in the Indian economy. So these are some of the criticisms against Niti Aayog. Criticisms against functioning of Niti Aayog. Done? So these are the things that I wanted to discuss regarding the concept of planning with you people. I know, very, very static portion, especially until Niti Aayog, everything is very static, right? You do not worry about the complete static information of Planning Commission. Don't worry about it. Trust me when I say this, UPSC is not going to test you there. Otherwise, if you want, I'll give you the planning documents of every 5-year plan. You read it, it will take 2 years, but definitely, yes, you will write a PhD paper on it. You'll get a PhD thesis on it. But for UPSC, that is not needed. Do not worry too much about it. Okay, done. So let's solve the questions, right? Let's solve the questions. After that, we can take a break. Let me check 1 second. Okay. Okay, 60% have answered correctly. Despite being a high savings economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in the output due to weak administrative machinery, illiteracy, high population ratio, capital output ratio. Now, please tell me, is it an application of Harrod-Domer model? Let me know. Is this question the application of Harrod-Domer model? What does Harrod-Domer model say? If you want to achieve higher growth, then increase the savings and reduce capital output ratio. And the question says, Despite being a high savings economy, capital formation may not result in the significant increase in the output due to, right, savings rate is increasing, G is not increasing by much. Why? Because the denominator is also increasing. Very simple. Denominator is also increasing. Denominator is also becoming very high. High capital output ratio. High capital output ratio. All of you okay with this? Right option is option D, high capital output ratio. Next one. Okay. 53%. The main object of 12th five-year plan is option D, faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. Central theme of 12th five-year plan is faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. Right option is option D. Okay. Okay, before you solve, the term basic is there. We have come across the term basic. Right? Many of you will say, sir, you did not mention the term basic. Basic industry was the focus of second five-year plan, third five-year plan, etc. Okay, I repeat. Basic industry was focused in the second five-year plan, third five-year plan, fourth five-year plan, etc. Okay, I have not written the term basic in the second five-year plan. Based on that, many of you will simply say first one is wrong. But be very careful. Okay. So 44% have answered correctly. From the second five-year plan, there was a determined thrust towards substitution of basic and capital goods industries. Point one is correct. Point one is correct. Anybody has an issue? Right? If you want to promote capital industries, import substitution, you will have to automatically promote basic industries. Fourth five-year plan adopted the objective of correcting the earlier trend of increased concentration of wealth and economic power. Do you remember the points regarding fourth five-year plan? Regional level planning was discussed. Local level planning was discussed. Welfare schemes were implemented. Yes or no? Please do let me know. Right? Yes. Second point is correct. Fourth five-year plan adopted the objective of correcting the earlier trend of increased concentration of wealth and economic power. Third one, in the fifth five-year plan, for the first time, the financial sector was included in an integral part of the plan. Statement is wrong. What about the fourth five-year plan? Let me know. What about the fourth five-year plan? Banking sector nationalization. Sir, right, how can you say banking sector nationalization? Fourth five-year plan was implemented from 69 to 74. Right, banking sector nationalization was conducted here only. Green revolution, banking sector, etc. So fifth five-year plan, for the first time financial sector was covered. No, in the fourth five-year plan itself, we started covering banking sector. Banking sector is part of financial market in India. Done. So third one is wrong. 1 and 2 are correct. Right option for the question will be option A, 1 and 2 only. Okay. Next, descriptive question. How are the principles followed by Niti Aayog different from those followed by erstwhile Planning Commission? Now, please think of it. Did we cover this? Again, not difficult question. Very, very static question. This is a very, very static question. If this kind of question is asked by UPSC, do not make a mistake. Do not make a mistake. Very, very static question. Right? What is the difference between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog? That is a question. You already have the answer. Write it. Planning Commission was an authority which was set up through executive resolution of the government without any representation of the states. Whereas Niti Aayog has a governing council where representation of the states as well as union territories is present. Planning Commission followed top to bottom approach, whereas Niti Aayog follows a bottom to up approach, wherein Niti Aayog prepares a credible plan at the village level and expands the scope of it to the whole of India. Like this, you write point by point. That is basically the difference between Niti Aayog as well as Planning Commission. Done. This question was asked earlier by UPSC. Please be very, very careful. Right, so I've given the model answer here. Please have a look at it. Now, before I go forward, many of the students keep on asking me, sir, what do you think? Should we write the answer in the form of paragraphs? Should we write the answer in the form of points? There is no universal answer to this. I hope you understand. There is no universal answer to this. It depends from one question to the question, one subject to the subject, one paper to another paper. For example, let me make it very clear to you. How many of you think writing in point form is very good approach in essay paper? Think of it. How many of you think, right, a essay question is asked, you'll keep on writing point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5 like this? No, my dear, don't do that. Please don't follow that. If you do that, trust me, you will not get good marks. So I hope you understand. There is no universal answer to your question. It varies from kind of a paper, kind of a question that is being asked. But I would prefer more of writing in paragraphs rather than writing in points in every question. I hope you understand. I would simply prefer that as an evaluator, if you write in paragraphs, it basically means you have very good, right, recollection power. You can connect the dots. Your conceptual clarity is very high. For example, think of it. If you come across an answer where every answer is given in point like this, don't you think the student has simply by-hearted everything? I hope you understand my point. Right? Every answer is written like this only. Point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. Point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. Right? Automatically, as an evaluator, I'll feel that, okay, the student has by-hearted everything and he's in a hurry to vomit everything on the paper. So that is a precise reason. There is no universal answer to that. You keep on right mixing and matching based on the question that has been asked, right? Based on the question. And there are certain students who are asking, sir, can we use pictures? My dear, drawing pictures in geography will help you. Drawing pictures in history will help you. But what kind of pictures can you draw in economics? You can draw a flow chart. To make the process easier, you can draw a flow chart. For example, imagine you're writing in 250 words about P notes. Can you draw a P note, right, picture flow chart of a P note, which will be much easier for the evaluator to understand? Of course, yes. But can you draw a picture of India in economics paper? Think of it. Can you draw a picture of, right, let's say there's a question on ports. There's a question on ports. You will draw the southern coastline of India. You will draw the southern coastline of India, and you will start naming the ports one after the other like this. 6 here, 6 here. You will draw very nice arrow marks and then start naming them. Is it needed for economics? Absolutely no. So from one paper to another paper, the approach will vary, right? Do not have an universal approach. Please do not have an universal approach for UPSC exam. That will backfire. That will simply backfire to you. Okay, done. Can we go forward now? Can we go forward? Next, the next chapter that I'll be discussing will be employment. Should I learn Niti Aayog action agenda at 75? Not needed. It was for the year 2022. It is already over. Sir, questions on infrastructure. My dear, questions are very much related to current affairs. That's the reason I'm not given. From infrastructure, questions have come. I'm not saying questions have not come. They are from current affairs. right? And whatever we have discussed, it is from the current affairs, right? So that's the reason I've not given the questions on infrastructure. So yesterday I came across the term ICRR. What is it? ICRR stands for incremental capital ratio. Sorry, incremental CRR, right? The incremental CRR. Now, what is this incremental CRR? Please tell me. RBI, not Government of India. RBI, couple of months ago, announced that after after certain time period, the 2000 notes will become useless. Yes or no? Right, after certain date, after the end of September, by the way, you cannot use 2000 notes. Now, when the RBI announced like this, there is a concern that people will take this 2000 rupee note, go to the bank, deposit these 2000 rupee notes. Some of the people will exchange them. Many of the people will deposit money in the form of 2000 rupee notes. Now, don't you think because of that, the deposits collected by the bank will suddenly increase? Let me know. Don't you think because of this, the deposits collected by the bank will suddenly increase? Yes, that is the reason the RBI has introduced a tool in the recent monetary policy called as incremental, right, a CRR. Incremental, right, a CRR, right, which says after certain date, whatever extra deposits you have collected, on that you keep 10% with RBI. Simple. After certain date, I believe after May 19th, whatever deposits you have collected, keep 10% of that with the Reserve Bank of India. It has been done in order to reduce liquidity in the banking sector. That's it. Okay. Done. So let's take a break now. We'll restart the discussion at 8:15. We'll restart the discussion from 8:15. Okay. Done. Take a break now. Work. Is it okay? The population which is willing to work but doesn't get the work, that population is called as unemployed. Please don't ask me, sir, will they get payment? Right? Of course, no. If they don't have any job, if they do not get a population which is not willing to work, children's, right, incarcerated people, that is people who are put behind the bars, the senior citizens, etc., they'll be covered under the non-workers. Now, the labor force is further divided into two parts, that is employed and non-employed or unemployed. Employed and unemployed. I'll repeat it again. Again, the labor force is divided into two parts. One is employed and the second one is unemployed. What is employed? Employed population simply means the population which is willing to work and gets the work and gets paid for the work. I will repeat it. The population which is willing to work, gets the work and gets paid for the work. That population is called as employed population. On the other side, what is unemployed? The population which is willing to work but doesn't get the work. Is it okay? The population which is willing to work but doesn't get the work, that population is called as unemployed. Please don't ask me, sir, will they get payment? Right? Of course, no. If they don't have any job, if they do not get any opportunity, they will not be paid any salary. If anybody says, sir, I know somebody who is willing to work but doesn't get work, but even then earns a salary, let me know. I want to join there. Right? So first point is simple here. Willing to work, gets the work and gets paid for the work. Employed. Willing to work but doesn't get the work, that population is called as unemployed. Right? That is basically the idea of employment, unemployment and non-workers. Right? Anybody has an issue with this classification, please do let me know. Whenever they talk about total labor force is increasing, total labor force is expanding in India. For example, is the total labor force expanding in India? Of course, yes. Labor force is expanding in India with more and more population falling into the age group of 15 to 50 years, 15 to 59 years. That's a working age population. 15 to 59. The labor force, the labor force of India is actually expanding. It's very high in India. So employed, unemployed and right? The non-workers. Okay, done. So this is basically the classification. Now, whenever you talk about unemployment, traditionally, right, basically there are four types. Traditionally, right, over a period of time, new types have been introduced. Traditionally, right, four types of unemployment. One is frictional, second one is structural, third one is seasonal, fourth one is cyclical. Frictional, structural, seasonal, right, and cyclical. Now, what do you mean by all of them? Let's go one by one. Frictional means whenever the workers, that is certain person who is employed, will quit the job and will join another job. For certain time period, the person will be unemployed. That is called as a frictional unemployment. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. What do you mean by frictional? Frictional unemployment basically means a person will quit the job, right, and join another job. For certain time period between the job, the person remains unemployed. That is called as a frictional unemployment. Second one is called as a structural unemployment. Structural. Whenever there is an advancement in the technology, it will lead to certain unemployment. That is called as structural unemployment. The best example that I can think of in the current affairs is, imagine a company will take up or purchase artificial intelligence. Is the logic okay? Right? I'm pretty sure all of you are coming across this, right? What is the impact of chat GPT on employment, etc., etc. So imagine a company will purchase an AI tool, artificial intelligence tool. So don't you think this artificial intelligence, point number one, represents improvement in the technology? And second, if the company will purchase an AI tool, don't you think it will create certain unemployment? All of you okay? Right? That will be considered as unemployment? Yes. Right? So whenever there is a improvement, advancement in the technology, and that leads to unemployment, that is called as a structural unemployment. Anybody has a problem with number two? And whenever they are talking about frictional as well as structural, don't you think this is normal thing to happen in the economy? I'll repeat it. Don't you think it is normal thing to happen, right? That is frictional as well as structural unemployment, right? On day-to-day basis, people will keep on quitting one job, join another job. And right, in case of improvement in technology, that is a very normal thing to happen, right? From one year to next year, there is advancement in technology. That is basically the argument which is called as the natural unemployment. Natural unemployment. It is basically the concept of natural unemployment. Okay, done. So again, understand this: frictional as well as structural, normal things to happen, right? Generally, it will keep on happening. And again, before I go forward, whether AI, right? Understand this: whether introduction of technology, whether introduction of AI, etc., whether this will always lead to unemployment, there is always a debate on it. Some of you are saying, but sir, this, but sir, that. Yes, there is always a debate. But what I'm talking is very simple here. The debate is whether overall unemployment increases or not. The debate is about that. For example, I hope you understand. Please understand the point very carefully here. What I'm saying is, in structural unemployment, let's say hypothetically, in structural unemployment, I'm the person who is involved in making certain notes, right? I'm giving you a simple example here. I am employed, and what is my role in the company? I am involved in preparing certain document. Now this company will hire, right, or will purchase an AI, artificial intelligence. This artificial intelligence will take my role, and as a result of this artificial intelligence, I will lose my job. My unemployment, I will classify this as structural unemployment. Is the logic okay? The unemployment that I am facing, it is called as structural unemployment. But does it mean that overall in the economy unemployment is increasing? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. That is the debate that is happening. Overall in the economy, there might be or there might not be. For example, sir, how can you say there might not be higher unemployment? What if I say I will lose the job, but to create AI, to create that artificial intelligence, 40 people have been hired. So I hope you understand. There is always a debate. There is always a debate whether overall economy, the unemployment will increase or not. That is the debate. But because of advancement in technology, will people lose jobs? Of course, yes, that is called as structural unemployment. All of you okay? All of you okay with this argument? So frictional and structural. Third one is called as seasonal. Third one is called as seasonal. What do you mean by seasonal? Whenever there is a change in the weather, certain unemployment will be created. For example, let's say sowing season will get over. Simple question to all of you. Let's say sowing season will get over. As a result of this, don't you think certain people will lose a wage employment opportunity? Yes or no? Once the sowing season is over, certain people will lose a wage employment opportunity. Let's say harvesting season is over. As a result of this, again certain people will lose wage employment opportunity. Can I say with the change in the season, unemployment gets created. That is the seasonal unemployment. And finally, cyclical unemployment. Let's say one economy, one country will fall into recession. A country will move from recession to depression. Now tell me, as a result of a recession and depression, don't you think unemployment will start increasing? More and more people will lose jobs, etc. So that is the precise reason. Whenever there is a movement or change in the health of the economy deteriorates, then that can lead to unemployment, which is called as cyclical unemployment. Done? Anybody has an issue in any one of those? Please do let me know. Frictional, seasonal, cyclical, structural, right? All these are the traditional types of unemployment. In addition to this, can we say in case of India, one more very famous type of unemployment is disguised unemployment. Disguised unemployment, right? All of you remember the concept of disguised unemployment. In case of a disguised unemployment, basically what happens? More number of employees are hired, but the productivity does not change. Marginal productivity remains zero, right? That is called as a disguised unemployment. Okay. So what is the example of fourth point? My dear, did we not experience a recession very recently because of pandemic? Let me know. That some of you do not even think before asking these questions. Think, please. This is my 23rd class. We have discussed all of this, right? Do you remember the concept of right, pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical, all of those concepts? Right? When we experienced a recession in the last 2 years, what do you think has happened? During pandemic, do you think employment increased in India? No, employment actually decreased. Unemployment increased. Can I call it as a cyclical unemployment? Cyclical unemployment. Of course, yes. Okay, done. What is structural unemployment? Whenever there is advancement in the technology, new technology means certain people will have outdated skill set. They will not be having any use in the economy. I'll repeat the statement. Whenever a new technology is introduced, right, certain people will have outdated skill set. Let me give you one more example. With introduction of laptops, with the introduction of personal computers, can I say the use of typewriters has become outdated? Yes or no? Right? With introduction of Google storage, Google Drive, with the introduction of Google storage, Google Drive, floppy disk has become useless. Correct? Right? Is anybody using even today pen drives? Use of pen drive also has become almost outdated now. Use of CDs has become outdated. So whenever new technology is introduced, certain products become outdated, and people who are involved in providing these services or production of these goods, their skill set will also become outdated. That is structural unemployment. Okay. So these are the different types of unemployment. Please be very careful. Now, let me go to the next one. Let me go to the next point here. What is the next point? How do we measure unemployment? How do we measure unemployment? What is this concept of measurement of unemployment rate? Very often you'll come across in the newspaper, for example. If you're reading newspapers in recent times, the unemployment rate of India is more than 7% now, more than 6% now. What is the meaning of it? What is the importance? How do they measure, etc.? Let me give a basic idea here. Earlier, I'll write it. Earlier, Government of India used to conduct survey once every 5 years. I will repeat the statement here. Earlier, Government of India used to conduct a survey once every 5 years. And the name of the survey is Employment Unemployment Survey. EUS. Employment and Unemployment Survey. So I'll repeat the statement here. Earlier, once every 5 years, government used to conduct a survey, which is very famously referred to as Employment Unemployment Survey, EUS. And what was the logic of Employment Unemployment Survey? Once every 5 years, the survey would be conducted and we would calculate what is the employment rate in India. I'll tell you the ratio. Have patience. I'll tell you the calculation. How much is the unemployment rate in India? That was done once every 5 years. And now please understand this. Imagine this survey was conducted for 2011 and 12 and was conducted in 16 and 17. So 2011 and 12 a survey was conducted. 16, 17 a survey was conducted. Now please look at this and tell me, imagine you want to introduce a new scheme in the year 2020 and you will use the data for the survey of 16 and 17. Can I simply say you are using outdated information? Let me know. Can I say you are using outdated data? And please remember, the labor market is very dynamic. Very dynamic in the sense, labor market keeps on fluctuating, keeps on changing on year-to-year basis. Now you want to formulate a policy in 2020 using the data of 16-17. Is it effective? It is not effective. That is the reason this policy of conducting once every 5 years the survey has been discontinued. Is the logic okay? We have discontinued this policy now. We do not do this now. Rather than this, we have introduced a new survey now, which is called as Periodic Labor Force Survey. Periodic Labor Force Survey. Very, very famous now. Periodic Labor Force Survey. In short, this is called as a PLFS. Periodic Labor Force Survey. In short, it is called as PLFS. And what is the importance of PLFS? PLFS is conducted once every quarter. We conduct the survey for every quarter in India, and we also conduct annual survey. Is the logic okay now? Is everyone okay with this argument? Why do we do this? Right? What is the importance of this? Now tell me, you want to make a policy today. Right? Imagine you're the Prime Minister. 8:35, congratulations, you're the Prime Minister. You want to formulate a policy on employment today. Don't you think if you take the data for the last quarter, that is almost not the right the current data, almost the current data. Don't you think you'll be able to make policies in a much better way, taking the most recent data compared to earlier situation where we used to calculate the data once every 5 years? That is the precise reason we have discontinued employment unemployment surveys, and in place of that, today we follow periodic labor force surveys, where the surveys conducted results are given for every quarter. For every quarter the data is published, and for the full year also the data is published. That is the importance of PLFS. Done? Now, whenever you come across the term unemployment rate, what does it mean? What is the side of a worker population ratio? What is this labor force participation ratio that you come across right on weekly basis or monthly basis in the newspaper? Let's go one by one. There are four very important ratios. Four very important ratios. Out of that, the most important is the second one. Out of these four important ratios, the most important one is the second one, that is unemployment rate, unemployment ratio. Let me start with the first one. Labor force participation rate, LFPR. Labor force participation rate. Now, what is this labor force participation rate? It measures out of the total population, how much percentage of the population is willing to work. I will repeat the statement. What is labor force participation rate? Out of the total population that we have, how much of the population is actually willing to work? Right? Look at the ratio or look at the formula there. LFPR is equal to labor force divided by total population into 100. That is basically the concept of labor force participation rate. Now, right, think of it. If LFPR keeps on increasing, which has happened in the context of India, if LFPR keeps on increasing, does it not mean that we have lot of population which we can utilize to increase the productivity, increase production in the Indian market? Yes or no? If LFPR keeps on increasing, in fact, it has happened for India. If LFPR is higher, will it not represent, right, one feature for India, which means we have a lot of labor force that we can utilize to increase productivity, to increase the production for Indian economy. That is basically the concept of labor force participation rate. Right? So you will be able to find out how much of the population is willing to work in India. Right? So that is first one. Now look at the first, third and fourth. I'll cover second, just have patience. Look at 1, 3 and 4. Right? What is the correction? In the first one, right, we are taking the numerator, that is labor force. Now tell me, can I divide the labor force into two components? That is a population which is employed, population which is unemployed. I'll repeat it. Can I divide the labor force into two components? That is one, population which is employed, second, population which is unemployed. And what is the importance of it? I will take population which is employed and calculate worker population ratio. Look at the formula now. Look at 1 and 3. Look at 1 and 3, both are related, not one and the same, both are related. Can I say using the labor force, I can calculate what is worker population ratio? Think of it. Using the labor force, provided I know how much of the labor force is employed, unemployed, can I calculate worker population ratio? Yes. And look at the proportion unemployed. I will take a population which is unemployed and I will calculate one more formula which is called as a proportion unemployed, PU ratio. Anybody has a difficulty between 1, 3 and 4? All the three are related. If you have the data of a population which is employed, unemployed, you can calculate, right, the labor force participation rate. You can calculate proportion unemployed. You can also calculate worker population ratio. But apart from these three, which is the most important one? The most important one is the unemployment rate or unemployment ratio. Unemployment rate or unemployment ratio. What is this unemployment rate? Out of the population which is actually willing to work in India. I repeat, out of the population which is actually willing to work in India, how many people are unable to get jobs? Right, that is unemployment rate. I'll repeat it again. Out of the population which is willing to work, out of that, how many people are unable to get the jobs? That is called as unemployment rate. Unemployment rate. And please remember, willing to work is important. Willing to work is important here. Why? I'll tell you. Right? Let's say between 15 years to 59 years, let's say there are, I'll take simple numbers so that you understand, there are 100 people. Between the age group of 15 to 59 years, let's say there are 100 people. But do you think all the 100 people are willing to work in the Indian economy? I do think all the 100 people are willing to work. No. What if out of 100 people, 10 people want to prepare 1 year for UPSC? Think of it. Right? Don't take it personally, by the way. Out of 100 people, what if 10 people say, sir, I don't want to work now. I'm a software engineer, but I want to become IS officer. So what I'll do, I will quit my job and start studying for, right, UPSC for 1 year. I will dedicate myself for 1 year UPSC preparation. Can you call this person as willing to work? Think of it. Can you call this person as willing to work? No. No, they are not willing to work. They do not want to provide the skill set to the economy. Can I give you one more example, which is generally the experience in Indian economy? After marriage, don't you think many of the houses, again, I do not promote it. Don't paint me in a wrong picture. Right? So I do not promote it. After marriage, don't you think many people will quit their jobs? Yes or no? After the parents become older, right? Will they quit the jobs? After children are born, will they quit their jobs? Of course, yes. So I hope you understand, not everyone in the age group of 15 to 59 years, not everyone in the 15 to 59 years, right? Everybody is not willing to work. So you will have to take out that population which is not willing to work. And that population which is willing to work, you will have to target only that. Out of that, how many are not getting jobs? That will give you unemployment rate. Now, at least now you will be able to understand why unemployment rate is so important. Right? Why unemployment rate is so important? Why don't you come across proportion unemployed in the newspaper? All of you okay? All of you okay? Right? Why unemployment rate is the target? Why should we reduce unemployment rate? Right? Why not proportion unemployed? Right? So that is the argument. Because in the fourth one, we cover the overall population. We cover overall population. In second one, we are not taking the overall population in India. We are only covering the population which is willing to work. That is labor force. That is labor force. Out of the labor force, how many people are unable to get the job? That is unemployment rate. Done? Can we go forward now? Now, what is the situation in case of India? What is the concern in case of India? What is the problem? Right? What is actually happening? Let's try and understand. Right? There is a situation which is called as a jobless growth phenomenon in the Indian economy. What do you mean by jobless growth phenomenon? Now, please tell me now. Earlier, we have discussed a situation wherein the GDP of a country will experience a good growth rate, but the employment growth rate will be very, very low. All of you remember this? Correct me if I'm wrong. Right? A country will experience a good growth rate, 5%, 6%, 7%. Right? Yes, good growth rate is experienced by the GDP, by the country, but the employment growth rate does not increase. It is, right, 1%. It is 0.2%. What do you mean by employment growth rate? Compared to last year, this year, how many jobs have been generated? Very simple idea. Compared to last year, this year, how many more jobs have been generated? That is employment growth rate. So GDP is very high, employment growth rate is very low. Can I call this is a situation wherein economy is experiencing higher growth rate and very low employment growth rate? That is jobless growth. That is nothing but a jobless growth. And there is a concern. In fact, last week I asked you to read one editorial in Hindu newspaper, correct? Open editorial. GDP and JDP, right? I hope you understand that. I asked you to read that article. So again, if you have not read it, read it today. Read it today as well. Argument is simple. When GDP growth rate is very high, employment growth rate is very low, right? We will call this as a jobless growth phenomenon. Jobless growth phenomenon. And there is a concern that Indian economy is actually experiencing jobless growth phenomenon. Why? What is the issue? What is the concern? And please remember, apart from jobless growth, there is also one more concern for Indian economy: underemployment. Apart from jobless growth, there is one more concern for Indian economy: Underemployment. What do you mean by underemployment? Underemployment simply means a person is working for a job with a higher qualification than what actually the job requires. I will repeat the statement. What do you mean by underemployment? A person is working for a job. There is a job where the person is working, but the qualification that the person has is much, much higher than what the actual job requires. Can I give you examples? And let me know whether you come across these kind of articles in the newspaper. A MBBS degree holder will apply for a clerical job under the government. Yes or no? Have you come across these articles? Right? An engineer, a graduate holder will apply for a clerical job with the banking sector. Right? What do you think is the situation there? Don't you think the graduate, that is the level of education, right? The education levels that are present with these people is much, much higher than what is actually required for the job. This is called as underemployment. So remember, in case of India, unemployment, is it a problem? Yes. Is underemployment a problem? Again, yes. Is a jobless growth a problem for Indian economy? Again, the answer is simply yes. All these are the issues in Indian economy. Okay. Now, how do we say that there's a jobless growth phenomenon? How do we say there is a jobless growth phenomenon in case of India, right? And what are the reasons? Let's go one by one. First one is lower employment elasticity. Lower employment elasticity. What do you mean by employment elasticity here? Let me take it separately. Employment elasticity simply means it is a measurement. It is a comparison between what is the GDP growth rate and growth rate in the employment. Right? It's a ratio. It's simply a ratio of growth rate in the employment compared with the growth rate in the GDP. Simple, in simple terms, compared to last year, the GDP has increased by how much? That is there in the denominator. In the numerator, compared to last year, the jobs, right? How many more jobs have been created this year? That is given in the numerator. Any problem here? Any problem? Right? How many new jobs have been created? In the numerator, percentage. And what is the change in the GDP? How much is the increase in the GDP compared to last year in the denominator? Now, please think of it. Please think of it. Don't you think having a higher employment elasticity means the growth is creating more and more jobs in the economy? I'll repeat the statement. Having a higher employment elasticity. If double E, employment elasticity is higher, does it not mean more and more jobs are getting created in the economy? If GDP will change by 1%, right? Imagine if GDP will change by 1%, increase by 1%, what would you prefer? Creating 1 lakh jobs in India or creating 10,000 jobs in India? Of course, you will have to choose, right, 1 lakh jobs. So what is the productivity of the growth? What is the productivity of the growth that is measured, right, in terms of employment generation? And this is called as employment elasticity. And all of you are okay if I say higher employment elasticity means the growth is very productive in terms of creation of jobs? Let me know. I'll repeat the statement. All of you are okay if I say higher employment elasticity means growth is very productive in terms of creation of jobs. But what has happened in the context of India? What has happened in the context of India because of various reasons, right? We'll discuss one by one, don't worry. Because of various reasons, employment elasticity has actually declined. Right? Employment elasticity has actually declined in case of India. Right? For example, have a look at this data. In 1990s, employment elasticity was around 0.4. Today, right, the employment elasticity is somewhere around 0.2. Right? It is somewhere around 0.2, which means, imagine you created 10 jobs. You created 10 jobs with certain amount of growth back in 1990s. If you want to create the same 10 jobs in India, GDP growth rate should have been much, much higher. All of you are okay with this statement? I'll repeat the statement. Imagine with certain amount of growth, you created 10 jobs in 1990s. If you want to create same 10 jobs, that is number of jobs, right? Currently, your GDP number has to be much, much higher today compared to what it was right back in 1990s. That is the impact of having lower employment elasticity, right? In case of India, employment elasticity is actually declining, which is one of the cause of concern. Cause of concern because we are experiencing very good growth rate, right? Again, don't say that, sir, last 1 year, last 2 years. Of course, yes. Because of the pandemic, GDP growth rate has taken a hit. But that doesn't mean that we are experiencing recession now. That doesn't mean that there's a depression in India. In fact, very often you'll come across this. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Is the logic okay? India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, right? It may not be the largest, one of the largest, but one of the fastest growing economies in the world. In fact, I'm pretty sure you've heard of this. India will become third largest by here, right? India will become second largest by this date, etc., etc. Again, right? From the perspective of economics, from the angle of economics, having a larger GDP is always good. But more important is, are we achieving inclusive growth? Are we achieving inclusive growth? That is equally important. Okay. So first one, employment elasticity is declining. Is it not a proof that we are experiencing jobless growth in India? Let me know. If employment elasticity is decreasing, is it not a proof that there is a jobless growth? Because if the employment elasticity decreases, it simply means that GDP denominator is increasing, numerator is not increasing very fast. That is jobless growth. Second, the availability of skilled labor in India is very, very low. That is a very important concern, by the way. Very, very important concern. Availability of skilled labor is very low. First one, skilled labor availability is a problem. Second one, there is a problem of skill mismatch. Remember both of them. There is a problem of skill mismatch, right, which is also called as a skill gap. Sir, right, what is this skilled labor availability? Let's say out of 100 people, only 10 people have certain skill set. Skill set as in to write a code in a computer, to operate a machinery to produce a good. These are called as skill set. So very few people who are actually working in India have got the skill set. So when labor force, very less labor force has got the skill set, don't you think it becomes very difficult for the companies to acquire the labor? Acquire means employ the labor. And second problem in case of India is skill gap or skill mismatch. What is a skill gap or skill mismatch? Imagine you will hire me. I'm a software engineer. You will hire me. You will ask me to write a code. Computer, you will ask me to write a code. I will simply say, sorry, sir, I do not know how to use this language to write a code. For example, I'm pretty sure, even though if you're not software engineers, you must have heard of this. Write a C, C++, C++, Python, etc., etc. These are computer languages, code languages. Right, Java, etc., etc. Whatever the names are there, don't worry. UPSC will not ask you that in GS paper. So argument is simple. I'm an engineer. You will hire me to write a code. But after you assign the work to me, you will realize that the skills that I have are not the ones that you require. Is it okay? The skills that I possess are not the ones that you actually need. Can I call this as a skill mismatch and a skill gap? Now think of it. Please think of it. In fact, this is a problem in India. Why this is a problem? There are a lot of training institutes in India. There are a lot of training institutes which will provide skilling to the people. Now, don't you think if the skills that they provide to me are not the ones which are required in the market, I might have a certificate, but I may not get the job in the market. Possible? Think of it. In fact, this is a problem in India even today. There are a lot of training institutes in India. They will provide training to me. I will have a certificate saying that I have a training in this. But in the market, there might not be any company in that region which will offer the job based on that skill set. So don't you think, despite being skilled, despite being trained, I might still remain unemployed? Right? That is the problem related to skill mismatch and a skill gap. And has it happened in India? Yes, it has happened in India. I'll give you example during pandemic. During pandemic, right? This was very much evident. Lot of people with the certificates, certain courses, etc., etc. They have moved to their native places. They have moved to their homes. Now in that region, they are searching for a job. Having certain skills, they are searching for the job. But what if there are no companies which will provide you a job based on that skill set? Right? They'll say, I don't want to move out of this district. I do not want to move out of this state. I want a job here only. But the company which requires a skill set, that skill set may not be present in that district, may not be present in that state. As a result of this, person will continue to remain unemployed. All of you okay with this? Anybody has a problem, please do let me know. Right? I'll come back to this. Regarding skilling, have a look at this. The level of skill development acquired has remained very low in case of India. 2.4% of the workforce in the age group of 15 to 59 years have received a formal training, and another 8.9% of the workforce have received a training through informal sources. So what do you mean by informal sources? For example, right, imagine my father, right, has, or my parents, right, father, mother, whatever it is, my parents have certain business. I may not go to school, I may not go to any training institute. Daily, I will keep on going to the business with my parents. Over a period of time, will I acquire the same skill sets or not? Right? Don't you think? Right? Family run businesses are done like this only. Yes or no? Family run businesses is done like this only. Right? So there are different means. Apart from formal training, there are also different means through which I will acquire skill set. So have a look at this. Right? 2.4% of the workforce are actually trained in India. Another 8.9% will acquire the skill set through informal sources. But even then, compare this with other numbers. Compare this with other countries. In case of other countries, China, in China, 24% of the labor force is skilled. In USA, 52% of the labor force is skilled. 68% in UK, 75% in Germany, 80% in Japan, 96% of the labor force in South Korea is skilled. Now, don't you think because of skilled labor availability, productivity in these countries would be higher? Production would also be much, much higher. Compare that with India. Right? Only around 10% of the labor is skilled either formally or informally. Which means, please understand, I'll add one more point here. That is the reason they'll keep on talking about, right, a demographic dividend, a demographic disaster. What do you mean by demographic dividend? Please tell me, point number one. Please tell me, what do you mean by dividend in the first place? What do you mean by the term dividend in the first place? Dividend means returns. All of you okay? Right? We have seen the term dividend in multiple contexts now. Right? What returns you will get, it is called as dividend. Now, in the context of demography, if a country has a large working force, if a country has a large labor force, don't you think that population can be used to produce more, achieve more GDP? Yes or no? Right? Think of it. I'll repeat it again. A country is there with a large labor force, a large working force. Can we use this large labor force to increase GDP, to increase production? Answer is yes. That returns from the population, that returns that you get from the population in terms of GDP is called as a demographic dividend. Now, whether you like it or not, whether you achieve it or not, in case of India, we have large labor force. If you cannot utilize this labor force today, after a couple of years, after many decades, maybe by 2050, maybe by 2060, etc., don't you think the burden on the government will be very, very high? Think of it. Sir, what do you mean by burden for the government? If population is not given jobs today, if people will not earn salaries, no savings and nothing, population which is poor will continue to remain very high, right? What will be the burden on government of India under healthcare expenditure by 2050? Imagine that. Healthcare expenditure, housing assistance, food security, etc., social welfare programs, etc. Can you imagine? Some of you are saying very low. My dear, the burden on the government will be very high. Right? Think logically, always think logically. Burden on the government of India will be very, very high. Sir, how is that possible? Let me take a very simple example. Today, let's say there are 100 people who are of the age of 15 years. I'll take extreme example so that you understand quickly. There are 15 people who are the age of 15 years. Now, right, today is 2023. Right, today the year is 2023. They will become 60 years after 45 years. Correct? After 45 years, they will attain the age of 50, which means if you add 45, this will become 2068. Now imagine these 100 people do not get jobs. Imagine, extreme case, right? Just to make you understand. Imagine these 100 people will not get any jobs. They will not have any savings, nothing. Now, who will provide food security for these 100 people in the year 2068? Who will provide food security? Government. Who should provide hospital facilities for this population? Government. Housing facility? Government. So can I say, rather than demography providing dividends, demography has become a burden for the government? Think of it. Right? Rather than demography giving dividends to the economy, giving dividends to the government, demography becomes a burden. Right? That is the reason there is a term called as a demographic disaster. Demographic disaster. Right? Government of India should better use this demographic dividend right now. Otherwise, in the future, this will become a demographic disaster for India. Because whether you like it or not like it, this population will get old. This population, right, will not be willing to work after many decades. This population requires assistance from the government. Then government will not have any option but to keep on providing assistance, keep on spending money, right, without getting the benefit of this population. Right? That is a concern. That is a concern. Please be very, very careful. Please be very careful regarding these topics. Done? Okay, so these are right, some of the issues in the labor. Some of the issues I'll discuss other issues also. Skilled labor availability is very, very low in case of India. Next one, investment has become more and more capital intensive. Right, investment has become, right, more and more capital intensive. Right, what is capital intensive? I hope you remember. Right, in fact, I gave you example also. Semiconductor manufacturing. Right, read that article. If you are having this kind of a doubt, read the articles. Current affairs articles will help you out. Semiconductor manufacturing, can I say it is very capital intensive? All of you okay? Can I say this is very much capital intensive? You will spend thousands of crores of rupees, but the jobs which are generated are very few in case of right, investment. Right, especially in let's say a sector such as semiconductor. What about gems and jewelry? What about textile, gems and jewelry? These are very much labor intensive. So a lot of investment that is flowing into India, it is flowing into capital intensive areas, capital intensive sectors. And that is the reason you will not be able to create more jobs, but production will keep on increasing. Okay. Majority of the contribution comes from services sector. Lot of contribution comes from service sector, and service sector, please remember, most of it is capital intensive. most of the service sector is capital intensive. For example, civil aviation market. Let me know. Civil aviation market. Do you think it is labor intensive? Telecom sector. Do you think that is labor intensive? Labor is generated. Please do not misunderstand my statements. I'm not saying no labor in telecom sector. Of course, as labor is generated. But compared to that, right, that is how much salaries they will pay. Compare that with, let's say, how much money they will spend on construction of towers, how much money they will spend on getting 3G spectrum, 4G spectrum, 5G spectrum. So investments are very much capital intensive. Investments are very much capital intensive. Okay. So majority contribution comes from the service sector. And if you compare service sector with, let's say, manufacturing sector, manufacturing creates more jobs compared to services sector. That is based on the investment. Per unit of investment, manufacturing has more capacity to create jobs compared to services sector. And one more problem regarding, right, the job market in India is the concept of labor laws. The labor laws are outdated in India. Many of the labor laws were formulated many decades ago. These do not represent what is the situation in Indian economy. For example, there are labor laws which are, right, passed by the central government as well as state government. I hope remember this. I've told you this. Labor laws in case of India, right, will fall under the concurrent list. Correct? I'm pretty sure I've told you this. It's basically a repetition for you. The labor laws fall in the concurrent list. Concurrent list means on this subject, central government can form a law, even the state government can formulate a law. And as a result of this, there were more than 100 labor laws in India. There are more than 100 labor laws in India. Now, don't you think following many of these labor laws will become very difficult for the manufacturers? Think of it. Following all these labor laws, or lot of these labor laws, right, creates a lot of problems, creates a lot of the issues for the employers. And that is the precise reason. Many of these companies, rather than hiring full-time labor, I repeat, many of these companies, rather than hiring full-time labor, they will prefer contract labor. They will prefer informal labor. Why? It is very easy to hire and remove the people in contract labor. Right? Concept of gig workers. Have you heard of this? Concept of gig workers. Right? What is this idea of a gig work? Gig work is basically a contractual labor. Contractual labor. Tomorrow we'll discuss gig working. Don't worry. Right? For example, Ola, right? Right? Drivers. Right? Or let's say Swiggy delivery partners, Zomato delivery partners. They will be paid only when they are provided with work. And let's say today, hypothetically, today, let's say government will impose a complete lockdown. Again, not news, hypothetically. Today, let's imagine government will impose complete lockdown. Now, don't you think a company which has a contract worker like this, it is very easy for the company to remove them, because no work means no money. Remove them, no allocation of work. On the other side, full-time workers, it is very difficult for the companies, because full-time workers' salary has to be paid. They can be removed, but salary has to be paid. So that is the reason, over a period of time, because the labor laws are very strict in India. Labor laws are very stringent, and more importantly, argument of the private sector is these labor laws were made in 1950s. These labor laws were made in 1960s, and we are in 2023. Economic situation in 2023 is completely different compared to what was the economic situation back in 1960s. So argument of the private sector is that government should restructure these labor laws. Government should amend these labor laws so that we can protect our own interest. Again, please understand, both the sides will have their own argument. For example, imagine you're a private sector company owner. You're owner of a private sector company. Now, please tell me, Don't you think it is much better? It is in your interest whenever there is a lot of flexibility in hiring and firing a labor. Think of it. Think from the perspective of private sector as well. Right? Everybody has their own interest. What is the argument of private sector? Economy is not constantly moving. Economy is not always right expanding like this. Economy will rise fall like this. In certain years we'll experience a very good growth rate. In certain years there is a contraction. In certain years there is a pandemic. In certain year there is a recession. So I should be having that flexibility. I should be having that flexibility to hire whenever I want to and to fire whenever I want to, because I need that kind of flexibility, because there is a fluctuation in the economy. But government says no. Government says no, we cannot allow you to do that. We need to protect the interest of the workers as well. So you want to remove people, take permission from me. You want to fire people, you want to lay off workers, take permission from me. So argument is labor laws are very strict. Labor laws are very stringent. And that is one of the reasons why investments generally get affected. Investments also generally get affected. Can I give you a current affairs example, which already I've quoted? Don't you think by amending certain labor laws, the states such as Tamil Nadu, Karnataka are attracting more investments? Let me know. I'll repeat the statement again. By making changes to labor laws, right, don't you think certain state governments are able to attract more investments? Of course, yes. What if they will amend, right, exactly in opposite way? Rather than making it easier for the private sector, what if the governments will change the laws which will make it more strict, more problem for the private sector? Don't you think private sector investment will be affected? So labor laws are also very important. They will have an impact on investments. Done? So these are some of the reasons why do we say there is a jobless growth phenomenon in India. These are some of the reasons. And can I also say the same points you can write if the question is what are the labor market issues in India? Let me know. These are some of the factors, some of the reasons why there is a jobless growth phenomenon. Can you write the same factors if the question is what are the problems in the labor market in India? Of course, yes. Same points you can write. Now, in addition to this, couple of more labor issues. Point one, large working population in India is involved in agriculture sector. Out of the total population which is working in India, a large part of it, somewhere around 49% of it, is there in the agriculture sector. And that's a problem. Why that's a problem? Any guaranteed returns from the agriculture sector? Any guaranteed growth of, let's say, the position of workers in the agriculture sector? Requirement of skill sets in the agriculture sector? No. You do not have to have a skill sets. You do not have to have any kind of certification. Right? No guaranteed returns in the agriculture sector. So rather than this, don't you think it makes much better sense to move part of this labor into industrialization? Right? Move part of it into manufacturing. Of course, yes. But for that to happen, first we need to provide them with skill set. Is Government of India promoting skilling in India? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. Is Government of India promoting skilling? Yes. Skill India initiative is there. Have you heard of this? Skill India initiative is there. Right? Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is there. So skilling initiatives are being implemented. But apart from skilling initiative, it is also very important to ensure sufficient number of jobs are generated. Sufficient number of jobs are generated. Now think of it. Make in India initiative. Yes, PLI, production linked incentive. Right? Government of India is it not promoting creation of more jobs by initiating these kind of schemes as well? Of course, yes. So please remember this. Of course, yes. Please remember, Government of India is taking care of demand side in the labor market as well as a supply side in the labor market. All of you are okay with this statement? I'll repeat the statement. By implementing schemes such as PLI, right, Make in India, Skill India initiative, right, or for that matter, the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana initiative, etc., Government of India is taking care of the demand side in the labor market as well as supply side in the labor market. Government is promoting skilling of the labor so that labor supply is there. And on the other side, by promoting PLI, they will promote investment. By promoting Make in India, they will promote investment, which means demand for labor will also increase. So supply as well as a demand, right? The government is trying to do both the sides. Okay, so this is one more labor issue. Please be very careful. Now next, female LFPR, right? A female LFPR. One of the concern in the labor market is female LFPR has started declining. I repeat, female LFPR has started declining. Why is it a concern? If the female LFPR keeps on declining, does it not mean that more and more female population is moving out of the labor force? Think of it. If female LFPR keeps on declining, what is the indication? What is the meaning of it? More and more female population is moving out of labor force. More and more female population is saying, no, I do not want to work. What are the reasons? Why it is a concern? Obviously, one concern is we need to empower female population. But if they try to, if this comes down, it simply means there is a concern regarding women empowerment. But more importantly, why? Why there is a reduction? Please think of it. Can there be family issues? Let me know. Can family be right? Can family issues be one of the reason why female LFPR will keep on declining? Right? Can there be security issue? Yes or no? Can there be security issue? Right? Of course, yes. Security reasons are also many of the times. Right? I'm pretty sure many of you must have seen this. Again, I'm not making this up. And if it is not happening in your home, great. But it doesn't mean it doesn't happen in rest of India. Right? So basically, in many of the families, they will say, right, parents are becoming older, right? Take care of the parents. You don't have to work anymore. Children are there. Please take care of the children. Don't work anymore. And I'll give you one more reason as well. One more reason. There are many female workers or female, right, participants in the economy who want to work. But the kind of jobs they are actually searching for are work from home. Work from home jobs. Please don't tell me work from home is very famous in India for last 50 years. No. Work from home has become very famous only because of pandemic. All of you okay with this? I don't say it is very famous now. Yes, right now it is very famous. Right? But earlier, before 2020, was there a concept of work from home for a full-time job? Think of it. Was there a concept of work from home for a full-time job? No. Right? They would simply say, if you want to work from home, right, work as a contract worker. I will not give you a full-time job. So argument is, there are people, female population, which wants to work, but they require flexibility. For example, work from home, or they want a flexibility where they want to work only from 10 to 2 like this. These kind of specialized jobs are not available in India in large numbers. Right? So these are some of the reasons. But again, please understand, always the reasons are not negative. Certain cases, there is a drop in the female LFPR because people, that is female population, is right, opting for higher studies. Right? A female population is opting for higher studies. Right? They will simply say, I've done my 12th class. Now I want to do graduation. After graduation, I don't want to work. I want to have a post-graduation. After post-graduation, no, I want to go to foreign market, get more, right, degrees, etc. That is good. Having more educational skill set, that is of course good. More qualification is of course good. So that is also one of the reason why the LFPR for female population has declined. Done. So this is one more labor issue regarding drop in the female LFPR. Right. So next, we'll discuss skilling initiatives. We'll take it up tomorrow. We'll start with the skilling initiatives tomorrow. Before that, if anybody has any kind of question, please do let me know. Otherwise, we will take up, we can stop the discussion. We can start tomorrow. Sir, why they include 15 to 18 years also in labor force, but most of these are in studies? My dear, studies doesn't mean you're not allowed to work. Anybody above 14, adult, right? Above 18 is adult, above 14 is allowed to work. Below 14 is called as child labor. That is the reason generally they will take from 15 years. Okay. What is the base year for PLFS? Right? What do you mean by base year? It is not an index. It is a survey. I understand. It's a survey. It is not an index. And if you say, sir, then how do they calculate unemployment rate, etc., etc.? My dear, out of total population, sorry, the labor force, right? If there are 20 people who do not have any kind of work, then they'll simply 20% is unemployment rate. Right? So there is no base here for that. Whose idea of or innovation was Niti Aayog? The government, right? The current government, right? The current government actually abolished planning commission and introduced Niti Aayog. What is the current unemployment rate in India? Somewhere in the range of 6 to 7%. How they measure unorganized sector working labor? Now, please understand, many of you are asking, sir, how they will find out whether a person is working or not working? There are different measures. There are different measures to find out whether a person is working or not working. For example, there is a term called as usual principal status, right? Usual principal status, right? Current weekly status, right? Etc. Using those, right? There are tools. Using those, they will try to find out whether a person is employed or unemployed. Okay. Sir, anyone working below the age of 18 is considered as child labor? No. Below the age of 14 years. Can we count each word for writing 250 word answer? No, you don't have to sit and count, my dear. It's a waste of time. That's a reason we generally recommend that you practice. You please practice. Once you keep on practicing, you will come to know half a page means approximately how many words you have written. Right? That should be the approach rather than sitting and literally counting words in the UPSC examination hall. That is right, a huge waste of time. Can't Niti Aayog work and propose a strategy on labor laws by discussing it with industry and businessmen? Already government of India has proposed labor laws. There are 4 labor laws which have been proposed by government of India, but please understand, I don't think so. My opinion, I don't think so. These labor laws are going to be implemented for the next couple of years, right? Why? During the period of elections, government generally doesn't take up these kind of laws. So yesterday in Indian Express has shown that employment of older person is increasing and younger working population are declining. How? It can happen because of multiple reasons. People who are above the age of 40 years, their population is higher in the working age group, right, compared to the below the 40. There could be multiple reasons. Okay. Does MSME come under informal sector? No, right? No. MSME basically is micro, small, and medium enterprises. Is it informal? No. Units under MSME are informal in nature. Most of them, of course. Okay. Now, right? The questions. Let me take up questions. Okay. Yesterday, descriptive questions are left out. Let me take up. Justify the need for FDI for the development of Indian economy. Why is there a gap between MOU signed and actual FDIs? Suggest remedial steps to be taken for increasing actual FDIs in India. Difficult question. Difficult in the sense there are multiple components to the question here. Not difficult because a lot of concepts are asked. Difficult because look at the number of sub questions. Right? Justify the need for FDI. Question number 1. Why is there a gap between MOU? MOU means Memorandum of Understanding. MOUs signed and actual FDIs. Question number 2 or sub question number 2. Suggest remedial steps to be taken for increasing actual FDIs in India. Question number 3. Sub question. So within 250 words, right? Look at the difficulty. Question is not difficult because it is conceptual. Question is difficult. There are multiple sub questions there. Within 250 questions, you are supposed to give answer for 3. That is a difficulty. Now, introduction, Keep it very, very short. Keep it very short. Why? You have too much information to write. What is FDI? Define it. Come to the main body. Why FDI is important? Right? Multiplier effect. It will bring resources. It will create jobs. Right? It will contribute to capital formation. Import dependence will come down. Exports might increase. Trade relations will improve, etc., etc. Okay, right? So that is the importance of right, the FDI. Now, why is that? Why is that? The MOUs are signed. MOUs means state government will sign an agreement with the private sector. It's an understanding, memorandum of understanding, where the private sector company says, I will invest so much amount of money. Right? It's a memorandum of understanding. The agreements are signed doesn't mean literally the companies will make investment. Why? The companies initially will sign agreement, then will realize that, right, it is very difficult to acquire land in that state. It will realize that skilled labor is not available in that state. It will realize that I'll construct a manufacturing facility, but road connectivity is not there. Port connectivity is not there. Railway connectivity is not there, etc. So because of all of this, initially the proposal that was given, can the private sector company basically cancel the proposal? Of course, yes. So how many agreements or how many MOUs are signed? All of them will not become infrastructure projects. Many of them will be cancelled because of these reasons. So what should be the way forward? How can you address this problem then? Right? What should be the way forward? One, we can have a single window clearance system. Do you remember the concept of single window clearance? Sir, where have you discussed a single window clearance? Yes, easy is special economic zones. Right? If you have a single window clearance, whatever approvals are required, only one authority will give you all the approvals. Will it not promote ease of doing business? Right? A skilled labor availability can be promoted by skilling. The state government, central government should provide the skilling to the labor so that labor is available which is skilled. Right? Reduction in the tariffs and allowing easier import of certain raw materials, certain machinery, etc., etc. Right? All of this, of course, will be helping in promotion of more and more foreign investments in the domestic market. How? Done? Done. Any problem here? So what is the problem with complementary infrastructure? My dear, road network is not there. Railway network is not there. Uninterrupted 24/7 electricity supply is not there. Right? Don't you think all of this infrastructure you require to promote more and more investment? Yes or no? Right? All of this you require. For example, many of the experts are promoting, even the government is promoting semiconductor manufacturing in India. Semiconductor manufacturing in India, very good initiative. But if you want to promote semiconductor manufacturing, it is not the first time that semiconductors are being promoted in India. Back in 2005, 2006, many state governments tried it. It has not happened in India. Why do you think it is not happening in India? To promote semiconductor manufacturing, the supply chain is very, very complicated. I hope you understand. Supply chain is very complex. You'll have to have system for creation of wafers. You'll have to have systems for creation of transistors. You'll have to have infrastructure for the creation of chips. All of that requires a lot of infrastructure. For example, you need 24/7 electricity supply. And how many of you know? Please read about it. For production of all of this, you require very, very pure water. Source of pure water. Pure water source is very important. Until unless you supply all of this, you cannot create such a very vast, complicated infrastructure. And that is a precise reason, despite so many reforms, right? Even today, we do not have very good semiconductor manufacturers in India. Most of it we import. Okay. So these are some of the reasons. Please have a look at it. There's a clear acknowledgement that special economic zones are tool of industrial development, manufacturing, and exports. Recognizing this potential, the whole instrumentality of SEZs require augmentation. Discuss the issues plaguing the success of SEZs with respect to taxation, laws, and administration. Start with the definition of special economic zones. Start with the definition. Okay. Then right? What is the importance of SEC? Right? Exports, creation of jobs, higher investment, higher production. All these are the importance of SECs. Then come to the problems in the SECs. Right? Did we discuss problems, issues related to SECs? Yes. Right? Investment has taken place, but land acquisition is becoming a problem now. Right? Investors are worried about impact of the pandemic. The pandemic has right affected the exports from the SECs. Right? What are the issues we have discussed? Write the issues. Then come to conclusion. Give the way forward. What is the way forward? Do you remember Baba Kalyani Committee recommendations? Let me know. Do you remember Baba Kalyani Committee recommendations? Write Baba Kalyani Committee recommendations. Right? Write that. Trust me, rather than giving your own recommendations, many of you will provide your own recommendations. You are not experts. I am not expert. Mr. Baba Kalyani Committee, right? That is an expert committee. Give those recommendations. Done? Right? So that is basically the approach to this kind of a question. Okay, so that's it from my side for today then. Any other questions that you people have, let me know. Tomorrow we'll continue with the skilling initiatives of Government of India. We'll cover inclusive growth as well as IMF. That's it. That will be the end of economy from the GS paper 3 for you. Okay. Okay, in mains, everyone will have content. What makes our answers different from others, sir? My dear, that's a reason. I'm telling you, please try to restrict your answer to the number of words given. And have a very good structure of answer. Have a very good structure in the answer. If the word limit is 250, do not write introduction for 150 words. Waste of your answer. You have wasted an opportunity. Right? The 250 word question is there. For example, MSP. I'll give a very simple example. And by the way, on a lighter note, your product of university is a system in India. I'm also product of university system in India. Do you remember how we used to write in our university exams? That the funda used to be very clear. One page you'll have to write in such a way that at least you'll get 1 marks. And assuming right 35 is a passing mark, you will have attachment, so many attachment that you will have 35 pages. For UPSC, don't do that. Please do not do that. For example, if there's a question on MSP, lot of people will have so much of content on MSP, they will write 200 words in introduction. And introduction will be like, MSP, MSP is minimum support price. MSP was introduced during Green Revolution. You know why? Because during Green Revolution, production would be very higher. You know what? As a result of that, supply would be very high. And you know what? Farmers used to suffer. And because of this, government introduced MSP to start with. They covered wheat and they gradually, they expanded to cover more than 20 crops. Out of 200 words, will be 100. Right? So that's the reason, right? What makes your answer stand apart from others? Right? Keep it crisp, but don't write too much about MSP when the question is, what are the problems with MSP policy? Don't write too much about MSP. Keep it very short. Come to the main body. What are the problems? 250, around 150 words should be there in the main body. And come to the conclusion, way forward. If there is a committee, give recommendations. Right? Give committee recommendations. That should be the way forward for you. So that is a precise reason. That's a precise reason. You will have to attempt all the 20 questions. Do not leave out. Attempt all 20 questions. But at least those questions where you have lot of content, write it to the point. Right? Write it to the point. Do not miss out there. Write to the point, at least in those questions where you have very good content. That will fetch you very good marks. And if you ask me, sir, what is a very good mark in UPSC? Out of 15 marks, if you can score 8 or 9, it's a very, very good score. Trust me. And out of again, sir, can I score more than 9? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. It all depends on the quality of the answer. But on an average, if you keep on scoring 8, 9, that's a very, very good score. Very, very good score. Right? As far as I'm concerned for UPSC. Okay, done. Right. So that's it from my side. We'll discuss the skilling initiatives tomorrow. We'll continue with the skilling initiatives. Then I'll discuss inclusive growth and finally IMF. That will be end of the discussion for you people tomorrow. Indian economy GS paper 3. So that's it from my side. Take care. See you tomorrow sharp at 6 a.m. Right. Have a great day.